Chapter 1. On the night of the full moon, on the top of Mount Tai, a world-shocking bolt of lightning descended from the sky, causing an area of 5 kilometers around Mount Tai to be bathed in the glow of lightning. For a time, the heavens and the earth were destroyed, and not a single blade of grass grew. Which expert is undergoing tribulation here? There's a phenomenon in the sky. A monster must be descending. The top powerhouses of China looked at each other in shock. They only dared to head to Mount Tai to investigate after the lightning dissipated. In the end, they found nothing and returned in disappointment. What no one knew was that 3 days after the spectacle of Mount Tai disappeared, Tian'an City, Jinyang District, a young man stood at the entrance of the district in a daze, causing the passers-by to cast sidelong glances at him. This was because the young man's clothes were ragged and his hair was disheveled, as if he was a savage that had walked out from the mountains. 5 years. Jinyang District, Yi-chun, am finally back. Yi-chun watched the familiar yet unfamiliar scene before him quietly. His body trembled lightly, and he seemed to be sad yet happy at the same time. However, he ignored the strange looks on the passers-by's faces. No one could understand what he was feeling right now. 5 years ago, he was tied up and sunk into the Surge River. He thought he would definitely die. Who would have thought that he would merge with a magical bottle at the bottom of the river? When he woke up, Yi-chun realized that he had traveled to a cultivation world where demons and immortals roamed. With this bottle, Yi-chun spent 3,000 years cultivating from a mere mortal to the unparalleled immortal venerable stage. He was known as the Mad Southern Immortal Venerable and founded the Eastern Heavenly Court. He was known as the Heavenly Emperor Yi by all clans. In 3,000 years, he had trampled on the geniuses of all clans and conquered everything in the universe. However, he did not expect to be betrayed by his most trusted disciple, Yu Wenshuan. In order to seize the position of the Heavenly Emperor, Yu Wenshuan joined forces with the Demon Realm, Devil Realm, and Buddha Realm to invade. That battle was unusually fierce. Yi-chun shattered the Emperor Armament, the Heavenly Emperor's sword, and shattered the Tier 9 immortal artifact, the Night Demon Battle Armor. In the end, he was thrown into the Void Rift. This spatial rift led to Earth. 3 days ago, Yi-chun had woken up on Mount Tai. However, his shocking cultivation base had long disappeared and his physical body was on the verge of shattering. If it were not for his special cultivation method, his recovery would not have been so fast. Meanwhile, Yi-chun found out that he had disappeared for 5 years. He had parents in this world, and he even had a beautiful girlfriend. He wondered how his parents were doing. And her, Su Yuhan. 5 years had passed. Was she still? Yi-chun took a deep breath in and walked into the neighborhood after calming himself down. The Jinyang District used to be a village in the city. 5 years ago, a thermal power plant was being built. The residents nearby were compensated with either money or houses. Yi-chun's family got a house too. Soon, Yi-chun arrived at his house based on his memory. He saw a hunchbacked, middle-aged lady with white hair sweeping the floor at the door from far away. Yi-chun stopped less than 10 meters away from her. His voice was extremely hoarse. "Mom." The middle-aged lady lifted her head to look at Yi-chun by instinct. She was stunned at first. Then the broom in her hand fell to the ground with a thud. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Xiaochun. It was Yi-chun's mother, Wulan. Plop. Yi-chun knelt hard in the water and knelt toward Wulan one step after another. He felt like crying. "Mom, I've been unfilial. I made you guys worry about me for 5 years. As the saying goes, when one's parents are around, one doesn't travel far." He could imagine how anxious and worried his parents must have been during the 5 years he had disappeared. "Xiaochun, why are you only home now?" Wulan recognized Yi-chun too. The mother and daughter hugged each other and cried. "You silly child. You didn't even call us when you went somewhere. We didn't even see your body. Do you know how sad your father and I have been all these years?" "Mom, I've gone somewhere far away. I can't contact you guys, but there's not a day that goes by that I don't miss you guys," Yi-chun said with teary eyes. "It's great that you're back. It's great that you're back. Let's not talk about the past. Let's go in. I'll call your dad now. He'll be happy to know that." Wulan wiped her tears and dragged Yi-chun into her house. She then called Yi-chen's father to tell him the good news. Yi-chen looked around the house quietly. At that moment, a little girl who was 4 or 5 years old ran into the house and cried, "Grandma, Xiaohu from next door bullied me again." The little girl had 2 braids on her head, revealing her arms that looked like lotus roots. Her long eyelashes could not stop fluttering. She looked like an exquisite porcelain doll from far away. However, her cheeks were puffed at the moment. She looked like she was wronged. "Grandma?" Yi-chun was stunned at first. He then looked at the little girl in disbelief. "Grandma, she's mine." Only then did the little girl notice Yi-chun. She hid behind Wulan by instinct after she stopped crying. She peeped at him with her head out of fear. Yi-chun looked at Wulan immediately. His heart was racing. "Mom, she's..." "Yes, Meng Meng is your and Yuhan's child." Wulan nodded and said, while smiling while holding the little girl's hand, "Yuhan got pregnant a few days after you disappeared. She gave birth to Meng Meng a year later, but this girl..." Yi-chun could not listen to his mother anymore. He walked to the little girl by instinct. "Meng Meng? My daughter? Yuhan gave birth to a sweet little girl for me?" Never had he thought that he would have a daughter after disappearing for 5 years. Moreover, she was all grown up now. He did not believe it at first. To be exact, he could not accept it. However, he recalled that he had touched Yuhan once half a month before he disappeared. That was the last time, and Yuhan was the one who initiated it. They had sex all of a sudden back then, so they did not take any safety measures. Moreover, the little girl looked 40% to 50% similar to him. "I have a daughter now." "Ha ha, Yi Tiendi, the mad southern immortal, have a daughter now." The emotions of being a father for the first time surged within him. Yi-chun could not wait to hold the little girl in his embrace and take a good look at her. However, the little girl hid behind Wulan again. She pulled Wulan's sleeve anxiously, clearly afraid of Yi-chun. "Meng Meng, this is your daddy. Haven't you been asking for a daddy?" Wulan said with a kind expression. Nobody knew where the little girl got her courage from. She said while blushing, "He's not my daddy. I don't have a daddy." "Silly girl, how did you give birth to a daughter if you don't have a daddy?" Wulan was between laughter and tears. The little girl said, "My mother gave birth to me." Wulan was amused by what she said. However, Yi-chun could not bring himself to laugh. Instead, he felt endless guilt and regret. It made sense. He had disappeared for 5 years. He had never seen his daughter since she was born. He had not even fulfilled his responsibility as a father for a day. Therefore, it was normal that she did not recognize him. Wulan pulled a long face. "Meng Meng, be good. He's really your daddy. Quick, call him daddy." "No." Meng Meng looked stubborn. Wulan pretended to be mad and stretched her arm to slap him. Yi-chun stopped her immediately. "Forget it, Mom. It's okay if Meng Meng doesn't want to call him daddy." Wulan sighed. "Sigh, I suppose you haven't eaten yet? I'll cook for you now. Play with Meng Meng." After she left, the father and daughter stared at each other. Yi-chun forced a smile on his face and asked, "Your name is Meng Meng?" The little girl harumphed hard and did not give him a good look. She then walked straight to the couch and sat down. She took out a checkered book from her bag and began doing her homework with a focused expression. Yi-chun moved closer softly, but the little girl blocked him with her hand immediately. Yi-chun did not mind. Instead, he asked while smiling, "Meng Meng, tell daddy. What's your name?" The little girl did not want to talk to him, but she said in her baby voice, "My name is Yi Meng Meng." Yi Meng Meng. His surname was Yi. Yi-chun's heart skipped a beat. He resisted the urge to pull her into his embrace and said while smiling, "Yi Meng Meng, that's a great name. Did Mommy give you that? Where's Mom?" He was a little confused, too. He had not seen Su Yuhan since he entered the door. Could she have gone to work? The little fellow raised her head and glared at him. Her face was stupefied. Mommy was taken away by the bad guys. Captured by the bad guys? Yi-chun was shocked. Just when he was going to ask something, clatter. The pen in the little girl's hand fell to the ground, and she fell onto the sofa. Holding her head with her hands, her face was full of pain. It hurts. Grandma, it hurts so much. What's wrong with you?" Yi-chun carried her in his embrace immediately. He was shocked to find out that there were many red spots on the little girl's body and her nose was bleeding. Yichen stopped her bleeding in a flurry. Ming Ming, are you all right? Don't scare me. Wu Lan came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. After seeing this scene, she hurriedly took out a bottle of medicine from the cabinet and poured a few pills for her to eat. Meng Ming's condition was alleviated. Yi Chan felt terrible looking at the little girl who had passed out. Mom, what happened to Meng Ming? He had finally seen his daughter, so he really did not want anything to happen to her. Wu Lan sighed and said in a sobbing tone, Ming Ming has leukemia. Buzz. Yi Chen's head exploded. Chapter 2. Leukemia was a type of hematopoietic stem cell malignant cloning disease. It was known as an incurable disease a few years ago. Chinese medicine defined it as blockage of the 5 meridians, stagnation of blood, and invasion of cancer in the bones. Although the medical technology was advanced, and it could be cured through chemotherapy and bone marrow transplant, the chemotherapy process was extremely painful. A bone marrow transplant could easily cost 300,000 to 500,000 yuan. To Yi Chen's parents, 300,000 to 500,000 yuan was equivalent to their lifetime savings. Mom, when did this happen? Yi Chen asked after taking a deep breath in. He had just seen his daughter when he heard such a terrible news. Wu Lan covered her face as tears rolled down her cheeks. In the 4th year after you disappeared, when Meng Ming was 3, she suddenly had a fever and a nosebleed. Your dad and I brought her to the hospital for a checkup, and we found out that it was leukemia. We went to countless hospitals, but Meng Ming's condition couldn't be controlled. Instead, it was getting worse. The doctor said we would either have a bone marrow transplant or chemotherapy. Both of these paths would take our lives. Meng Ming was so young, so how could she endure the pain of chemotherapy? However, a bone marrow transplant would cost hundreds of thousands of yuan. Your dad and I really couldn't do anything about it. Since we had no choice, your dad and I could only treat her condition with medicine temporarily. The medicine alone costs 1,000 yuan. We've spent all our savings in the past year. Wu Lan looked like she was in pain and blamed herself when she mentioned the sad part. Yi Chen took the bottle of medicine from his mother's hand and saw the name Gleevec on it. He asked by instinct, what about you, Han? Wu Lan wiped her tears, looking rather unnatural. Yuan, what happened to you, Han? Yi Chen's expression changed, seeming to have realized something. Wu Lan hesitated and said, the Su family took Meng Ming away by force when she was just 2 years old. Yi Chen lifted his head when he heard that. A ferocious gleam flashed deep in his eyes. The Su family. Back then, Yi Chen met Su Yuhan in university. Back then, Su Yuhan was the campus belle. She had many suitors, but she fell for Yi Chen, who came from an ordinary family. Yi Chen only found out about Su Yuhan's identity after they fell in love. She was the daughter of the wealthy Su family in Beijing. What was a wealthy family? In the words of the young man who had stepped on Yi Chen to the ground and looked down at him in a condescending manner back then, in ancient times, there's a toad that wants to eat swan meat. However, to my Su family, you lowly commoners are worse than a toad. You're an ant at most. If not for you, Han, my Su family wouldn't even bother to step on you. Since you're an ant, you must understand that you're an ant. Don't have any unrealistic fantasies. Otherwise, I guarantee that you'll die a horrible death. Yi Chen was indignant after that. He secretly swore that he would prove himself with some results. In the end, he was knocked out on his way back from work. His hands and feet were tied, and he was dragged into the Surge River. Needless to say, it was done by the Su family. Yi Chen clenched his fists slowly as he thought to this point. A smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. Su family, thanks to you, Yi Chen, didn't die after falling into the river. Instead, I returned to the city with the might of a heavenly emperor. Just you wait. I'll show you what an ant is and what fear is. Wu Lan thought Yi Chen was mad when she saw that he was silent. She explained immediately, Xiao Chen, don't blame Yuhan. After you disappeared, your father and I couldn't bear to see her suffer, so we asked her to abort the baby and go home. However, this girl was stubborn and said that she would wait for you to come back. She even did housework and went to work with her pregnant belly. She took care of Ming Ming until she was 2 years old. She could only go home with them when the Su family came. I know, Mom. It must have been hard on her all these years. Yi Chen smiled, but the ferocity deep in his eyes was growing. With Su Yuhan's character, she would never leave her daughter, Meng Meng, unless she had no other choice. The Su family must have used many underhanded methods, such as threatening her with Yi Chen's parents. Wu Lan said while wiping her tears, Yuhan never came back after she left. She couldn't even contact me and your father. She must have suffered a lot. After Meng Meng was diagnosed with leukemia, your father went to Beijing to look for her. The Su family chased him out and even broke one of his legs. One day, I'll bring Yuhan back myself. I guarantee that day won't be too far away. Yichen smiled coldly. The rage within him had risen to its peak. How could the Su family let Su Yuhan know that Meng Meng had leukemia? Otherwise, she would definitely go crazy over it. Wu Lan's expression changed slightly, as if she noticed what he was thinking. Don't do anything. We can't afford to offend the Su family. We're old. Our only hope in this lifetime is that you and Meng Meng are healthy. However, Meng Meng, don't worry, Mom. I've learned some medical skills during the few years that I disappeared. I have a way to treat Meng Meng's illness, but it'll take some time, Yichen comforted while smiling. To ordinary people, leukemia was no different from terminal illness. However, to the East rising immortal venerable, a rebirth pill was all that was needed to help Meng Meng be reborn and rebuild her vital energy and blood. The only difficulty was that the rebirth pill could only be refined with a foundation-building cultivation base. However, he had lost his cultivation base at the moment. It seemed like he had to find a way to recover his cultivation base as soon as possible. By then, he would be able to refine the qi and blood pill to suppress Meng Meng's illness. The effect would be 100 times more powerful than the Gleevec. Yichen secretly made up his mind. Wu Lan sighed and said nothing. She took it as a consolation. At that moment, an argument came from outside the house. Wu Lan was stunned. She got up and walked to the door by instinct. Your father is back. Yichen followed her immediately. When a mother and daughter walked out of the house, they saw a middle-aged man in a work cap surrounded by a bunch of people. The leader was a young man with dyed blonde hair. The middle-aged man was Yi Chen's father, Yi Hai. The blonde young man was chewing gum while glaring at Yi Hai ferociously. Yi, you've been hiding from us for days. I've finally caught you, haven't I? If you don't get the money today, don't blame me, Bao Kuan, for turning against you. Upon hearing Bao Kuan's name, the people who wanted to stop the fight had a drastic change of expression. They retreated far away immediately, afraid that they would be implicated. I don't have money now. Can you give me more time? Yihai said while his face was flushing. You don't have money now? Sure, keep one of your fingers as interest. Bao Kuan spat the gum out and took a pair of scissors from behind him. He said with a ferocious expression, press this old fart's hand. I'll teach him a lesson today. As soon as he was done speaking, the few people behind him hugged Yihai. Stop, all of you. Yi Chun was enraged when he saw that. He gestured to his mother to stand still and walked over while roaring. The people were shocked and could not help but look at him. Bao Kuan's expression turned grim immediately. F***CK. Where did this idiot come from? How dare he interfere with my business? I'll beat you up too if you don't get lost. You have no right to know who I am. Yichen glanced at him extremely coldly and said to Yihai while smiling, Dad. Yihai was stunned. He looked at Yi Chun in disbelief and said, Why you're Xiaochen? Yes, Dad. What exactly is going on? Yi Chun nodded and subsequently looked at Bao Kuan and the rest coldly. Yihai opened his mouth, but Bao Kuan, who was standing aside, interrupted. You're this old fart's son? It's great that you're here. This old fart owes us 50,000 yuan. Pay for him now and kowtow a few times. Then, Piak. Yichen lifted his arm and slapped him before he was done speaking. Your mouth stinks. Also, it's not your place to interrupt when I'm asking questions. The slap was unusually loud. Dead silence filled the surroundings. Everyone stared at Yi Chun in disbelief with their eyes wide open. Even Yi Hai, who was involved, was stunned. Why King dare to slap me? Bao Kuan was dumbstruck from the slap. He only snapped back to his senses after being stunned for a few seconds. He looked at Yi Chun blankly while covering his face. He, Bao Kuan was Brother Leopard's trusted subordinate. Even the city's top leader had to be polite to him. Now, someone had slapped him just because of a disagreement. Piak, another slap came, and the other side of Bao Kuan's face swelled up. Shut up. Yichen retracted his hand slowly, looking extremely cold. Things were getting out of hand. Yihai's heart sank to the bottom. Chapter 3. Bao Kuan waved in resentment. The 7 to 8 hunks standing next to him charged at Yichun at the same time. All of them had a ferocious smile on their faces. Many people who were watching closed their eyes by instinct upon seeing that. They could not bear to watch. To them, Yichun would definitely die since there were so many of them. Wulan, who was far away, almost fainted from the shock. Xiaoqi, Brother Kuan, I'm begging you. Get your people to stop. I'll give you the money. I'll give you as much as you want. Yihai stood before Yichen immediately. He could not stop shaking, and he almost knelt before Bao Kuan. Their son had disappeared for 5 years. Now that he had finally returned, their granddaughter had leukemia. If something were to happen to both of them, they would not be able to live anymore. It's too late. Beat this whole thing up too. Bao Kuan grinned as a cruel smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. How dare you beat me up? You really don't know how to spell the word death. At that moment, 7 to 8 sticks were smashing at Yihai. Yichen reacted quickly and pulled Yihai behind him. He lifted his arm to block the attack, and the 7 to 8 sticks that were smashing at him broke. Meanwhile, nothing happened to Yichen at all. The few of them stared with their eyes wide open. They looked at the broken sticks in their hands by instinct and then at Yichun. They could not help but be horrified. Is he even human? The smile on Bao Kuan's face froze. He subsequently shouted, "What the F***CK are you guys waiting for? I don't believe that this brat is made of steel." The few of them thought that Bao Kuan was right. After gulping, they charged at Yichun while waving their fists fearlessly. They seemed to want to tear him into pieces. "You're just a weakling." Yichun smiled in disdain. Although he had lost his cultivation base at the moment, he had the body of an immortal after all. Even the spatial tear could not destroy his body. How could an ordinary person compare to his physique? He took a step forward. Instead of retreating, he charged at the crowd with pure physical strength. Subsequently, a series of devastating shrieks came. Those who were hit by him flew out and wailed on the ground. Dead silence filled the place at that moment. Everyone stared at Yichun in disbelief with their eyes wide open. How is this possible? Bao Kuan jolted as a chill rushed into his heart. Subsequently, he seemed to have thought of something as a ferocious expression flashed across his face. He stretched his arm out and took out a dagger to stab at Yichun. "Go to hell." Yichun kicked, and Bao Kuan knelt hard onto the ground like a shrimp. Subsequently, Yichun grabbed his neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. He looked cold. "Do you know how to spell the word death? I am Brother Leopard, Lin Tai's man. Why you won't have a good ending if you dare to touch me." Bao Kuan kicked his legs in the air, his face turning the color of a pig's liver. At this moment, the feeling of death surged into his heart, and he finally began to feel fear, because the young man in front of him was looking at him with eyes full of killing intent. The crowd gasped when they heard the name Brother Leopard, Lin Tai. It was because Lin Tai was the underground king of Tianan City. He was ruthless and had a powerful background. Even the higher-ups could not do anything to him, let alone ordinary people like them. "Xiaochun, let him go now. Don't act rashly." Yihai's expression changed as he stomped his feet immediately. Bao Kuan's hopeless heart lit up with hope again. Subsequently, it turned into a ferocious grin. He was grinning recklessly even when Yichun was choking him. They were scared. The father and son were scared. So what if you're good at fighting? You have to kneel as soon as you hear Brother Leopard's name. Mockery appeared at the corner of Yi Chen's lips. "You're Lin Tai, right? Sure, I'll spare your life today. However, you have to pay for what you've done. I'll break one of your arms as punishment." As soon as he was done speaking, a crack was heard. Bao Kuan fell onto the ground and shrieked while holding his right arm. "Ah, and my arm is broken. My arm is broken. The reason why I'm sparing your life is that I want you to go back and tell Lin Tai that he'll apologize to me before the sky turns dark. Otherwise, he'll have to bear the consequences. Yi Chen looked at him in a condescending manner without any emotion. Get lost. The 7 to 8 hunks who were lying on the ground got up immediately and carried Bao Kun away as if they were fleeing. They were afraid that Yi Chen would regret his decision. The onlookers looked at Yi Chen blankly. The shock in their eyes lingered for a long time. Never had they thought that Yi Chen could defeat Bao Kun and the rest on his own. Xiaochen, a sobbing voice came. Wulan walked over quickly and took a good look at Yi Chen. Are you all right, Xiaochen? Are you hurt anywhere? I'm fine, Mom. Yi Chen smiled. After glancing at the onlookers, he dragged Yi Hai, who was in a daze, back into the house. He only asked after closing the door, Dad, what exactly happened? The reason why he had attacked earlier was that Bao Kun had insulted his father by calling him an old man. He even wanted Yi Hai to kneel to him. Just based on this point alone, no one would be able to look straight at him. Yi Hai forced a smile after snapping back to his senses. We spent all our savings 2 months ago to buy medicine for Meng Meng. I'm useless, and I couldn't borrow money from my relatives. I heard from a friend that someone was giving us a loan, but the interest was higher than the bank. Back then, Meng Meng's medicine was about to run out. I borrowed 10,000 yuan from that person and promised to return 12,000 yuan half a year later. Never had I thought that the person would ask me to return it less than a month later. Moreover, he wants me to return 50,000 yuan. He said that 40,000 yuan was the interest. Loan sharks. Yi Chen's expression turned serious. He finally figured out what had happened. Loan sharks were much more terrifying than drugs. Even a family with hundreds of millions of dollars would not be able to handle such a thing. Meanwhile, Bao Kun and the rest must have known about Yi Chen's family situation, which was why they targeted Yi Chen's father. You're an old fool. What's the situation at home? Why did you borrow loan sharks? Are you trying to kill us? Wulan pointed at Yi Hai and scolded. Yi Hai looked ashamed. There's nothing I can do. Seeing that his parents were going to fight, Yi Chen comforted them immediately. Dad, Mom, it's all right. Fortunately, I didn't borrow much. I'll return it later. Although he said that, he was sneering in his heart. Why would he return the money that he borrowed with his own ability? Moreover, it was loan sharks. Sigh. That's the only thing we can do. Yi Hai sighed. Wulan complained a little more before going to the kitchen to cook. Yi Chen and his son sat on the couch and chatted for a long time. They were mostly explaining where he had been all these years and why he did not contact his family. To get rid of his parents' suspicion, Yi Chen could only use the excuse that he was selected as a special worker by the country. He had been training in a secret base all these years and could not contact the outside world. Fortunately, Yi Hai did not ask further. The father and son chatted for a while and only shifted their attention to Meng Meng when she woke up. Grandpa, you're home from work. The little girl ran into Yi Hai's embrace in excitement. She said sensibly while patting Yi Hai's back, You've worked hard, Grandpa. I'll definitely earn money to be filial to you when I grow up. Yi Hai was so happy that he could not even close his mouth. However, there were tears at the corner of his eyes. Yi Chen, who was standing aside, was envious because the little girl ignored him. However, he was not in a hurry. He believed that Meng Meng would definitely accept him as her father after spending a long time together. After that, Wulan brought out the dishes. The whole family ate happily. When they finished eating, it was already dark. Meng Meng curled up in Wulan's arms and fell asleep early. Yi Chen only returned to the room that Su Yuhan used to stay in after his parents fell asleep one after another. He looked at the things that Su Yuhan left behind in reminiscence and sat on the bed with his legs crossed. He activated the Emperor's scripture and sensed the thin spiritual energy between heaven and earth quietly. The Emperor's scripture. The Emperor, also known as the Son of Heaven, punished on behalf of heaven. He had the ability to rule the 4 seas and the responsibility to rule everything. He was the only one in the vast universe. He was the heavenly emperor before, so naturally, he was the emperor of all beings. Time passed quickly. For hours later, Yi Chen, who had been sitting still, suddenly shook intensely. Subsequently, a faint golden gas emitted from the surface of his body. Yi Chen opened his eyes slowly and smiled after sensing his body. I finally stepped into the threshold of cultivation, beginner stage spirit assembly. The Emperor Scripture is indeed the culmination of the immortal world's techniques. The Emperor Scripture was comprehended by Yi Chun after he became the Heavenly Emperor in his past life. It was the culmination of all the techniques in the immortal world, allowing him to cultivate the Emperor energy. The Emperor energy was the emperor of all energies. However, he had already cultivated other techniques back then, so he could only teach it to his disciple, Yuan Xuan. Never had he thought that Yuan Xuan would have the intention to rebel. Since I've broken through, the first thing I need to do is to refine the Qi blood pill for Ming Ming. That way, I can suppress her illness temporarily. Yuchen got up slowly and fell into deep thought while frowning. His thoughts were gradually becoming clearer. But before that, I'll have to get rid of some people who are blocking my way. A majestic aura exuded from his body as he thought to this point. Black Panther Lin Tai, I've given you the chance, but you didn't cherish it. Yuchen walked out of the house quietly after changing his clothes. It was late at night at the Hongtai Private Club in Tian'an City. Yuchen was stopped by 2 security guards outside as soon as he arrived at the entrance. The leader looked unfriendly. "Stop right there. Who are you?" Yuchen said while smiling. "I'm looking for Lin Tai. Do you have a VIP card?" The security guard asked. "No. Since you don't have one, go back to where you came from. This is a private club. Outsiders and dogs aren't allowed in." The security guard took a good look at him in utter disdain. Yi Chun was unmoved, and the smile at the corner of his lips did not fade. A watchdog will always be a watchdog. You can't change your habit of looking down on people because of your position. Bang! As a loud thud came, the 2 security guards were thrown out. All the VIPs in the lobby on the first floor of the club were shocked. They were stunned. Yuchen walked in at a steady pace and glanced through the entire lobby coldly. His voice was loud and resonated in every corner. Chapter 4. Everyone in the lounge was dumbstruck. They looked at Yi Chun, who was walking over slowly in shock. How arrogant! A word appeared in everyone's mind. What an arrogant young man. What kind of place was the Hongtai Club? It was one of the few high-end clubs in the entire Tian'an city. It was not open to the public. Instead, it was a VIP invitation system. Those who could get in were celebrities from all walks of life. The reason was none other than the boss behind the club was Lin Tai. Lin Tai. Perhaps many people could not react at the mention of this name. However, they felt their scalp tingle and chills run down their spines when they thought of the Black Panther. That was a ruthless, black-hearted bastard. However, the young man before them came uninvited. He broke the door and even said that he wanted the Black Panther, Lin Tai, to come out and accept his death. Was he young and arrogant, or did he want to die? Yuchen had no expression on his face as he faced everyone's stare. Instead, he sat on the couch closest to him and took out a cigarette slowly to light it up. He was waiting. He had already asked around on the way here. Lin Tai would spend the night here every night without exception. One could say that the clubhouse was his home. He was not just arrogant. Many people's eyelids twitched. Forget that he was here to cause trouble. He even had the mood to smoke. The sound of footsteps could be heard as 3 to 5 burly men in black uniforms emerged from the corners of the palace. Each of them had a baton in their hands. The leader was a young man in a suit. He looked extremely ruthless. The security guard were here. There was going to be a show to watch. The guests who were watching were elated. They looked interested. The young man in the suit waved hard. Kill him and feed him to the dogs. Those who were in this business would not waste time talking nonsense. As soon as he was done speaking, more than 10 hunks charged while waving their batons. Their bodies were neat, and their steps were steady and powerful. Clearly, they had been professionally trained. Yuchen stood up slowly and flicked the cigarette ash away. He flicked his finger when those people were approaching him. The cigarette but shot into the air at high speed, sparks splashing everywhere. The 2 security guards who were charging at the front blocked it with their hands by instinct. However, Yuchen kicked them. The 2 of them flew out and smashed many tables and chairs. The crowd gasped in shock. Never had they thought that Yi Chun would cripple 2 of them as soon as they met. No wonder he was so arrogant. It seemed like he had some ability. The expression of the young man in the suit changed slightly as he subconsciously glanced at the third floor. You guys are too weak. Yichin shook his head lightly and charged at the dozen or so people who were charging at him. He performed the most basic gravity method in the cultivation world. Wherever he passed, it was as if he was possessed by the god of war as devastating screams filled the air. In just a few short breaths, the ground was filled with people lying in disorder. No one was spared. At this moment, the hall was deathly silent, terrifyingly silent. Everyone was shocked to the point their jaws almost hit the ground, and the shock in their hearts was difficult to add to. Gulp! It was unknown who swallowed a mouthful of saliva, but it caused a series of gasps in the audience. Strong, terrifyingly strong. At the same time, in a room on the third floor of the club, two men stood outside the window and looked down, clearly seeing what was happening below. One of them was a grim, tanned hunk, while the other was an old man in martial arts attire. The old man was approximately 40 to 50 years old, but his eyes were bright and he had an extraordinary aura. The tanned hunk stared at Yi-chan below with a grim expression. I've never offended him, but this man is extremely arrogant. Does he really think that I'm nobody? Very well. Is it because I can't wield my saber anymore? Or is the person outside arrogant? Intense killing intent flashed through his body. Subsequently, he took out his walkie-talkie to call for help. Wait! The old man in martial arts attire next to him suddenly stopped him and said while thinking, Director Lin, I'm afraid this man is an ancient martial artist. It's useless no matter how many people you send. The tan hunk's expression changed immediately. Master Wu, what should we do? Although Lin Tai was a tyrant who was not afraid of high officials or rich people, he knew that there were many people who were above him in this world. They were ancient martial artists. For example, the old man before him, Wu Changchun. Wu Changchun smiled calmly. Don't panic. Judging from his young age and his aura, I don't think his cultivation base is that high. Stay here and make me a cup of hot tea. I'll be right back. Thank you, Master Wu. I'll reward you handsomely after this. Lin Tai was over the moon. Wu Changchun shook his head lightly and left calmly as if he was taking a stroll in the park. No wonder you're an expert, Master Wu. His aura affected Lin Tai's emotions. He lifted his head to look at Yi Chan below after complimenting him from the bottom of his heart. His eyes were sharp. Brat, I don't care who you are. Since you dare to mess with my territory, don't you dare to leave. Downstairs, Yichin suddenly felt a chill coming from behind him after kicking the young man in a suit who was charging at him. He turned his head to look by instinct. He saw an old man in black martial arts attire walking over slowly from the staircase. The old man's footsteps were neither fast nor slow, but he gave off a great pressure. It's Master Wu Changchun from the Qingyang Martial Arts Dojo. Someone in the crowd cried out in surprise when they saw the person who had arrived. Another person seemed to have recalled something upon hearing that. Shock filled his face. What? I can't believe he's here too. Who exactly is this Master Wu that you guys are talking about? Someone was confused. Master Wu is the person in charge of the most popular martial arts dojo in Tian'an City. I heard that he's a descendant of Wing Chun and has mastered the true teachings of Wing Chun. I saw with my own eyes that he punched through the wooden dummy because he overexerted himself when he was demonstrating to the students. The people were shocked to hear that. They could not help but look at Yi-chun. A real expert is here. Let's see what you're going to do now. Yi-chun glanced at Wu Changchun while squinting slightly. A smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. He's quite capable. He's so calm. Wu Changchun was secretly surprised by Yi-chun's calmness. He said while smiling, Little brother, I'm Wu Changchun from the Qingyang Martial Arts Dojo. I wonder if there's any misunderstanding between you and Director Lin. Can you do me a favor and sit down and talk? The people could not help but nod when they heard that. No matter what, Master Wu deserved to be called an expert based on his magnanimity alone. Yi-chun lit a cigarette and took a puff as if he did not hear him. Wu Changchun frowned. Just when he was going to speak, he saw Yi-chun blow a puff of smoke at him. He scoffed. Do you a favor? Who do you think you are? A person who would advise you to be magnanimous without understanding the situation or asks you to give him face, you should stay away from this kind of person, because when lightning strikes him, you will be implicated. The crowd was stunned as soon as he was done speaking. Everyone was dumbfounded, thinking that they had misheard. Can you not be so arrogant? Lin Tai, who was on the third floor, could not help but scoff when he heard that. Young people nowadays are so hard to understand. Isn't it good to be alive? Wu Changchun's face turned pale. He was enraged. Chapter 5. As soon as he was done speaking, the temperature in the hall seemed to have dropped by tens of degrees. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Master Wu, who was an expert in Wing Chun, was enraged. Young man, don't overestimate yourself just because you're capable. Consider it a blessing that you've cultivated in your past life to be able to die under my Wing Chun today. Wu Changchun laughed out of rage. Subsequently, he disappeared from where he was in a flash. He arrived before Yi Chun within the blink of an eye like a specter. Subsequently, he threw a Wing Chun punch at Yi Chun's chest. The shadow of his fist was as fast as lightning, so fast that it was unpredictable. There was even a faint explosion sound coming from the air around. Die for me. What fast speed. What a fast punch. The people were shocked. Before this, Master Wu could punch through the wooden dummy with a single punch. If this punch landed on a person's body, that person's internal organs would probably be shattered, right? Lin Tai, who was on the third floor, grinned cruelly. Let's fight to the death. Yi Chun shook his head lightly as he faced Wu Changchun's punch. Subsequently, he stretched his arm out. You're not retreating? You're seeking death. Disdain flashed through Wu Changchun's face. He did not slow down his punch. However, his expression changed drastically in the next second because he was shocked to find out that his fist was covered. It was covered by a hand. The hand was like a lingering ocean that absorbed all of his strength. He could not move forward at all, and he could not even pull his fist back. Gasp! A series of screams exploded at the scene. Everyone rubbed their eyes and looked at the scene in front of them in shock. The smile on Lin Tai's face froze. He stood up from his chair and watched what happened below in shock. How is that possible? Yi Chun enunciated word for word as he looked at Wu Changchun, who was flushing from holding his breath. Wing Chun? I think it's embroidery fist. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Wu Changchun was enraged and embarrassed. He wanted to throw another punch by instinct. Piak! A big hand slapped his face hard. He saw stars and flew out directly, smashing the windows and doors on the first floor. No one knew if he was dead or alive. An extremely cold voice was then heard. How dare you embarrass yourself with that? Go back and study for a few more years. The surroundings were completely silent. No one dared to make the slightest sound. Everyone was staring blankly at the thin and ordinary-looking young man. From the moment this person entered the room until now, he had shocked them again and again. Even the famous Master Wu was like a baby in his hands. He was defeated in one move without the slightest ability to fight back. Lin Tai's face twitched hard. There was dead silence. He did not expect Master Wu, whom he respected, to be defeated. Moreover, he was defeated within a single move. A bone-piercing chill quietly surged into his heart. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, but a cold voice came to his ears. Lin Tai, I'll give you a chance to come out and end this. Otherwise, this place will be razed to the ground today. Lin Tai gulped and walked downstairs with a heavy heart after getting rid of the thought in his head. He thought about shooting, but he dared not take the risk. Yi Chun sat down and lit a cigarette for himself. His eyes flickered a few times as he looked at Lin Tai, who was being escorted by his underlings. He said, Do you know what you've done? Lin Tai was much calmer now that things had come to this. He clasped his fists at Yi Chun after waving his hand to signal his underlings to leave. I've no idea how I've offended you, sir. If I did, I hope that you'll tell me. Even if I'm going to die, I want to know what I've done. Yi Chun took a good look at him and said while frowning, You gave my parents a high-interest loan and threatened to chop my hand off just because of a disagreement. Tell me, have you offended me? Did that happen? Lin Tai lifted his head to look at Yi Chun in confusion. I've absolutely no idea about that. I've never done that. I swear. Oh, are you saying that I've wronged you? Yichen blew a smoke ring and smirked. Your underling, Bao Kuan, brought his men to collect the debt this afternoon. He even used you to threaten me. It's him. Lin Tai was stunned at first, but he subsequently snapped back to his senses. Sir, it's true that Bao Kuan is my underling, but I didn't know about the high-interest loan. I think he did it behind my back. He turned around and glared at his underling next to him with killing intent on his face. The underling nodded to show that he understood. Soon, he tied Bao Kuan up. Brother Leopard, what did I do for you to do this to me? Bao Kuan knelt on the ground, looking aggrieved and furious. He struggled to stand up from the ground. Lin Tai walked over and kicked him to the ground directly. He said while clenching his teeth, You bastard, you almost killed me. He finally understood that everything that happened tonight was caused by this bastard. He made him a scapegoat for no reason. Yichen watched everything coldly. Subsequently, he said wryly, Brother Kuan, do you still recognize me? Do you remember what I told you? Bao Kuan only noticed him then. His expression changed as he said to Lin Tai, Brother Leopard, kill this brat. He beat up our brother earlier. He even named you Slap. Lin Tai slapped him. He was dying to tear him into pieces. He then turned his head to look at Yi Chun and said, Sir, don't worry. I'll definitely give you an explanation for this. Sir, Bao Kuan's body shook intensely as he looked at Yi Chun in disbelief. He then connected Lin Tai's words and actions with him. He suddenly fell to the ground, looking pale. Take him away. Lin Tai waved with a grim expression. A few people stood out to drag Bao Kuan, who was like a dead dog. They dragged him away despite his screams. Lin Tai said while wiping his sweat after everything was done, Sir, do you think you're satisfied with what I've done? What if I say you're not satisfied? Yichen shook his head expressionlessly. Lin Tai's heart sank. Just when he was going to say something, he suddenly felt a piercing pain coming from his left thumb. When he looked down, he saw half a bloody finger on the ground. Some of the people who were watching screamed when they saw that. However, Lin Tai bit his lip hard, not daring to make a sound at all. Yichen spoke slowly without any emotion in his voice. I've broken one of your fingers as a punishment. Are you satisfied? He did not think that he was bullying people. If he had not been there earlier, would his father, Yi Hai's, finger really have been chopped off? He borrowed 10,000 yuan and returned 50,000 yuan? How was Yi Hai going to repay his father when his daughter, Meng Meng, needed money for her illness? If he chopped off his finger the first time, what would he chop off the second time? Although Bao Kuan got what he deserved, it was all because of Lin Tai's lack of discipline. Yichen was being extra merciful by only chopping off one of his fingers instead of killing him. I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. Lin Tai held his left hand that was bleeding nonstop. His face was extremely pale. I'm responsible for this too. Sir, you've only chopped off one of my fingers. That's the biggest mercy you can give me. He was a meter away from Yi Chun, but his finger was chopped off for no reason as soon as Yi Chun was done speaking. How could he not be satisfied facing such a technique? Compared to the shock of the soul, what was the pain of the physical body worth? Yi Chun nodded and got up to walk to the door. You can try to take revenge on me if you're not satisfied. Yi Chun, will fight you anytime. No. Lin Tai could not stop shaking his head. The people in the club had complicated expressions on their faces as they watched Yi Chun leave. Nobody dared to stop him, but the shock within them lingered for a long time. There was such a person in Tian'an City. Things were going to change. Lin Tai was panting heavily as he calmed down from the shock. One of his underlings walked up and said with a ferocious look on his face, Brother Leopard, should we get someone? Lin Tai lifted his hand and slapped him. He said while clenching his teeth, Idiot, don't drag me into this if you want to die. From now on, nobody is allowed to offend this person. Even if we can't be friends with such a person, we can't be enemies with him. It was already past 2 a.m. when Yi Chun returned home. After feeling his parents even breathing, he took a shower and began cultivating while sitting cross-legged on the bed. Yi Chun only stopped cultivating and walked out of his room when the rooster crowed. Wu Lan said in surprise, Why are you up so early? Go back and sleep. I'll wake you up when breakfast is ready. Mom, I'm not sleepy. Yi Chun smiled and looked at his parents' room by instinct. How's Meng Meng? His daughter would always be his biggest concern. Yi Hai yawned and said, She's sleeping soundly. It's just that this girl likes to kick her blanket. Your mom has to tuck her in a couple times a night. Yichen walked into his parents' room after a moment of hesitation. He picked up Ming Ming softly and looked at her sleeping face quietly. The little girl did not like her father when she was awake. Therefore, he could only hug her and look at her secretly when she was asleep. Yichen's face was filled with love. The feeling of blood being thicker than water made him feel emotional. Your nose is like mine, and your eyes are like your mother's. Especially your eyelashes. They're exactly the same as your mother's. Ming Ming, it'd be great if you could call me Daddy. The little girl turned around and mumbled in her sleep. Yichen held his head down and kissed the little girl's little face. He placed his hand on her little hand and nurtured her body with his spiritual power. A few seconds later, the smile on Yichen's face froze. It was replaced by a monstrous killing intent. The Su family is great. Great. Chapter 6. At the same time, in Beijing, the capital of China, within a luxurious manor, two handsome young men sat facing each other, and each of them had a graceful and charming young woman nestled in their arms. They were extremely bashful, and they seemed as if they wanted to refuse yet welcome each other. If Yi-chan were here at the moment, he would have realized that the young man sitting below was the man who had stepped on him back then, looking down at him in an extremely arrogant manner. Su Tao. Meanwhile, the young man sitting above had a mustache. There was a faint smile at the corner of his lips, adding a hint of maturity to his already handsome face. The bearded young man gave Su Tao a strange look. Subsequently, he touched the lady's thigh in his embrace and said while smiling elegantly, "All right, you guys can leave now." After everyone left, the bearded young man took a sip of red wine and said while swirling the liquid in the glass softly, "How's the one in your family now? How else can she be?" Su Tao's face instantly sank, and he gritted his teeth as he said, "This bitch has been staying in her room all day since she came back, and she refuses to see anyone. This is good as well, unless she goes out and does some immoral things to bring shame to our Su family." The bearded young man frowned when he heard that. "She hasn't given up?" Something like that. Su Tao nodded and said regretfully, "If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have gotten someone to throw that brat into the river back then. I should have killed that brat right in front of that *TCH. At least, I could have left a body and ended her hope." Su Tao seemed to have recalled something as he spoke to this point. He grinned hideously and said, "But it's going to happen soon. The star that brat left behind is dying. I got someone to inject a new virus from Southeast Asia into the star's body. The clinical symptoms of the virus are no different from leukemia. The star will definitely die in less than 3 months. By then, the last bit of hope in that *TCH's heart will be gone." The bearded young man's expression changed slightly. He was shocked by Su Tao's ruthlessness. Subsequently, he said while smiling, "You're willing to do that? According to seniority, that little girl is your niece." "How can a lowly person be my niece?" Su Tao scoffed. "Her existence will only bring shame to my family." The young man fell silent for a moment before he said, "I don't want to see any accidents happen, and neither does the person behind me. She must get married in 3 months. Why did he fall for my sister? You have to know that other than a pretty face, this slut is no longer innocent." Su Tao wanted to say something, but hesitated. In fact, he really wanted to ask if that person liked other people's wives. Bang! The bearded young man slammed the wine glass on the table and said with a dark expression, "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Just mind your own business." Understood. Tian'an City, Jinyang District. Yichen carried his daughter, who was sleeping soundly. The killing intent within him was extremely dense. He had thought that his daughter was just suffering from normal leukemia. Who would have thought that when he was nourishing his daughter's body, he would discover a lot of strange toxins accumulated in her body? These toxins were like maggots that were sucking his daughter's qi and blood, and even devouring his daughter's bone marrow. If this went on, his daughter Ming Ming's life would be in danger in less than 3 months. The first thing he thought of was the Su family. There was no why. It was whatever Yi-chan thought. Haha. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you guys, Sue family. No matter how smart you guys are, you won't know that my life has changed. Yichin smiled instead of being mad. He stretched his arm out and thumped his chest. A drop of golden blood dripped from the corner of his lips. He flicked his finger again, and the drop of golden blood integrated into Meng Meng's body. The little girl who was sleeping had no idea that she seemed to be glowing at the moment. Her entire body was golden, and when the glow faded, her breathing became much more even. It was one of the 3 drops of blood from his heart. It was the Heavenly Emperor's blood. With this drop of Heavenly Emperor's blood, the toxins in the little girl's body could no longer invade her heart. Yichin would be able to remove all of the toxins for her after refining the rebirth pill. Meanwhile, Yichin's face turned much paler. He kissed the little girl's cheek in the end and placed her on the bed softly. Yichin's eyes were extremely gentle as he caressed his daughter's face that was sleeping soundly. Meng Meng, I've let you down and I've let your mother down. Don't worry. Since I'm back, I won't allow you and your mother to be hurt. Mommy, I miss you so much. I miss you so much. His daughter turned over and pouted her lips. Yichin's heart ached. He lifted his eyes to look far into the sky with determination in his eyes. Yuhan, wait for me. You must wait for me. 3 months later, it'll be the day Yi-chun, come to the capital to pick you up. It'll be the day I marry you. If the Su family tries to stop me, I'll just kill them. Yi-chun only walked out after his mother called him for breakfast. Wulan got Yi-chun to sit down and went to wake the little girl up. Wake up, Meng Meng. You have school today. The sky was bright at the moment. Just when Yi-chun had 2 mouthfuls of noodles, he saw Meng Meng walking out of the room while rubbing her sleepy eyes. The little girl pouted as soon as she saw Yi-chun. She pouted so hard that a soy sauce bottle could be hung on it. Yi-chun waved while smiling. Come and eat your noodles, Meng Meng. Daddy will feed you. The little girl scoffed and walked into the bathroom. She picked up a small toothbrush and began brushing her teeth. Meanwhile, his mother, Wulan, went over to help her comb her hair and put on her clothes. Yi-chun forced a smile. It seemed like the little girl had a huge grudge against him. Yi-hai, who was standing aside, sighed as if he sensed what he was feeling. Don't be mad. Meng Meng has never seen you since she was born. Yuhan took care of her before she was 2 years old. Your mother and I took care of her after she was 2 years old. Your mother dotes on her so much that she's a little spoiled. I know, Dad. Yi-chun smiled and asked, Meng Meng is going to school at such a young age. Yi-hai nodded and said while smiling, Yes, she's in kindergarten. It's a small class. Your mother and I have to work most of the time. We're worried about leaving her alone at home, so we sent her to kindergarten and picked her up after school. How's Meng Meng doing in school? She's not being bullied, is she? Yi-chun was more concerned about that. Yi-hai was in between tears and laughter at the mention of that. Are people bullying her? It's good enough that she doesn't bully others. This girl always beats up her classmates. A few days ago, I was invited to a parent-teacher meeting by the teacher. The teacher said that Meng Meng beat up a boy's nose until it bled. The boy's parents couldn't stop arguing. Then, why did I hear the little girl crying when I came home yesterday that Xiaohu from next door bullied her? Yi-chun rubbed his nose, dumbstruck. Is my daughter so violent? Did she take after her father? Yi-hai looked helpless. Xiaohu? Xiaohu is old Zhao's grandson. He's 1 year older than Meng Meng. He's a little precocious, so he always gathers his peers in the community to ostracize Meng. He even scolded Meng that she's an orphan. She cried a few times in anger. Yi-chun came to a realization at that moment. It was no wonder that the little girl had such a huge grudge against him. He had nothing against Xiaohu and the rest. After all, they were kids who knew nothing. If you have time, spend more time with Meng Meng. For example, bring her out to play or something. It'll strengthen the relationship between the two of you. Yi-hai suggested she's a kid. She's forgetful and doesn't hold grudges. She'll be fine after a while. Yi-chun nodded to show that he understood. Soon, Wulan brought the little girl out of the room. She ate a few mouthfuls of breakfast unwillingly and said that she wanted to go to school. She did not like Yi-chun, her father, at all. After Wulan helped her carry her bag, she took her out of the house. Yi-chun was in between tears and laughter. He initially wanted to send her to school himself, but he was afraid that the little girl would hate him more. He could only suppress his urge. Chapter 7. To Second Uncle's House. Yi-Chen failed to react at the moment. Yi-Chen's second uncle, Yi Ming, was considered the most promising one in the Yi family. He was promoted to the deputy section chief of the Development Zone Department at a young age, and the Development Zone was usually the most profitable. However, ever since Second Uncle got married, he became henpecked. Meanwhile, Second Aunt, who had just married, did not like Yi-Chen's family. Therefore, Yi-Chen rarely visited them to annoy them. Yi-Hai sighed and said, "In these few years when you were not around, your second uncle was still quite concerned about you. He used his connections and friends to look for your whereabouts. Even when we were treating Ming Ming, he even secretly gave us 5,000 yen behind your second aunt's back." Yi-Chen nodded upon hearing that. Indeed, what second uncle had done throughout the years deserved his gratitude. Over half an hour later, the father and son arrived at Yi Ming's house. Yi-Hai walked up and knocked on the door. Soon, the door opened and a pretty face peeked out. The girl frowned. "Who are you guys?" "One, you don't know me?" Yi-Hai said while smiling. The girl came to a realization, and the passion on her face faded a lot. She was stunned at first when she looked at Yi-Chen, who was next to Yi-Hai. She seemed to have recalled something. Then she said calmly, "Come in." She was Yi Ming's only daughter, Yi-Wen. She was 4 years younger than Yi-Chen. When Yi-Chen graduated from university, Yi-Wen was just a freshman. Perhaps it was because they had not seen each other for a long time, but Yi-Chen could not feel any warmth from her at all. Yi-Chen did not show it. After following Yi-Hai in, he saw his second uncle, Yi Ming, sitting next to the stove in the living room. He seemed to be watching television. Yi Ming walked over as soon as he saw the duo. He said while smiling sincerely, "Brother, why are you here?" "I'm resting, so I thought I might as well visit you." Yi-Hai smiled. Yi Ming just noticed Yi-Chen, who was next to him. He rubbed his eyes and said in a testing manner, Is this Xiao-Chun?" "Second uncle, it's me. How have you been all these years?" Yi-Chen nodded and asked in concern. "I'm doing fine, but I'm really happy to see you back. Don't just stand there. Come. Sit." Yi Ming got the father and son to sit in a friendly manner. He lifted his head and said to Yi, when he was going upstairs, "One, don't you know how to serve your uncle and cousin?" "Dad, can't you see that I'm busy? Serve yourself." Yi-Wen replied impatiently and went upstairs on her own. However, she felt a little disdainful. Uncle? Needless to say, this time he must be here to borrow money from my dad again. This kid must be here to borrow money. Yi Ming shook his head helplessly. He got up and poured a cup of hot water for Yi-Chen and his son. Just when he was going to say something, footsteps came upstairs. Soon after, a middle-aged woman dressed more fashionably walked down. Perhaps it was because she had taken good care of herself, but she looked like she was in her 30s. It was Yi-Chen's second. Yi Ming waved immediately and said, "Wenwen's mother, look who's here. Uncle Wen, Uncle. The second aunt glared at him impatiently and scoffed. "You weren't this excited when Section Chief Zhang came to our house last time. What are you talking about? Section Chief Zhang is an outsider. How can it be the same?" Yi Ming smiled in an honest manner. Yi-Chen greeted her politely when the second aunt walked closer. "Nice to meet you, second aunt." "What's so nice about that? It's been a few years since I last saw you. Where did you get rich?" The second aunt said in a sarcastic tone. Disdain flashed deep in her eyes, especially when she saw the father and son's attire. Since she was familiar with all kinds of branded goods, she could tell that the father and son were wearing cheap goods that cost tens of yuan at a glance. How dare such a person come here to borrow money to treat a dying girl? "I won't lend you a single cent. What if she dies? How are you going to pay me back?" Yi-Chen smiled calmly. "I've been abroad for a few years. I can't say that I got rich. So, what do you plan to do in the future?" The second aunt gave a short response and showed an expression as if she expected it. At the same time, she asked in a testing manner. Yi-Chen shook his head. "I haven't thought about it yet." Yi Ming, who was standing aside, said all of a sudden, "Oh yeah, Wenwen's company seems to be hiring in 3 days. The salary and benefits are great. Why don't you get Wenwen to introduce you to them?" Just when Yi Chun was going to reject him, Yi Hai said with joy written all over his face, "Really?" He was worried before his son came back, and he was still worried now that his son was back. He was worried about his son's future and how he was going to make a living. What Yiming said undoubtedly gave him hope. That should be possible. Wenwen is quite popular in her company. I heard that she even knows the HR leader's child. I'll get Wenwen to say something when the time comes. Yi Hai smiled. Yuan came downstairs with her earphones on just when they were talking. She said angrily after hearing what Yiming said, "Dad, you're giving me trouble again. Not everyone can join our company." She seemed to be saying that Yi Chun was not qualified. That's right. You know nothing, and you only know how to come up with stupid ideas. What if Wenwen loses her job because of you? The second aunt glared at him ferociously. Yiming did not care at all. Don't worry. I believe in Xiaochen. After all, he has his education. Why don't we do this? Xiaochen will go for the interview in 3 days. If he passes, Wenwen, talk to your colleague and get him a better position. That's great. Yi Hai agreed on behalf of Yi Chun with a smile on his face. Yi Chun smiled helplessly and did not say anything else. The second aunt looked terrible, as if she had eaten a fly. On the other hand, Yuan was furious. She returned to her room with a cold expression after coming out of the bathroom. She opened her WeChat and sent a message in the group chat. "This is so annoying. A cousin that I haven't seen for years is shameless enough to come to my house. I can't believe he's asking me to get him to work at our company." Yi-Won and a few colleagues who were close to the company created the group chat. There were not many people in the group, only 5 of them. However, all of them had high statuses in the company. Soon, someone replied in the group chat, "Cousin? Then you guys must be close." Ewan typed while smiling coldly. "Of course not. This cousin of mine has been studying abroad since he was young. We hardly see each other. Moreover, he disappeared for a few years and came back like a wild man. Our family is so poor that we can barely afford to eat. Yet, my dad treats them like treasures." Wen, I understand what you mean. Don't worry. I'll make him scram as soon as he dares to come to the company in 3 days. That's right. How dare he offend our Wen? He must be tired of living. I suggest we beat up Wenwen's stupid cousin directly 3 days later. We'll show him what it means to know one's place. Ewan could not bear to do that. Take it easy. He's my cousin no matter what. I don't want my dad to be caught in the middle. Chapter 8. After leaving Second Uncle's house, Yi-Chun could not stop thinking about how Second Aunt and Yi-Wen did not like them. It would be a lie to say that he was not upset, but he could not say anything. Yi-Hai comforted him as if he guessed what he was thinking. Your second aunt is just like that. Don't mind her. Although she's a little stingy and snobbish, she's not a bad person. Yi-Chun nodded. He would not be calculative with the 2 women. Moreover, they were Second Uncle's closest people. Just when he was speaking, Yi-Hai took out some money and passed it to him. "Dad, what are you doing?" Yi-Chun asked in confusion. Yi-Hai shoved the money to him without saying anything. "I know that you've been through a lot of hardship all these years, and you haven't earned much money. Here's 1,000 yuan. Use it to buy a suit or something. If it's not enough, ask me for more. Also, you must attend the interview in 3 days. Don't let your second uncle's kindness down." Yi-Chun agreed to it. He realized that his mother was home when he got home. He was worried, so he asked about his daughter's condition. Subsequently, he left the house after changing. He wandered aimlessly along the way. Firstly, he wanted to see the scenery of Tianan City that he had not seen for thousands of years. Secondly, he wanted to figure out how to earn money. His parents were over 50 years old. They were struggling for the family in Mengmeng. Now that he was back, he had to take on the responsibility. Moreover, he would need money to buy herbs if he wanted to refine medicinal pills to treat Mengmeng's illness. He needed money for his cultivation too. He could not rob a bank with his identity as a cultivator. After all, the rule of killing and robbing in the cultivation world did not apply on Earth. Therefore, earning money was his top priority. When it was close to noon, Yi-Chun realized that he had arrived at the outer ring of Jiulong Antique Street. In reality, the so-called Antique Street was more suitable to be described as an antique city because antiques had evolved into a culture, a label, and even a tourist attraction in Tianan. To attract tourists from other places, The local government funded the renovation of the original antique street into an antique city. Meanwhile, the antique market was always a mess. There were only a few valuable items. Although that was the case, the prosperity of Julong Antique Street could not be hidden. After hesitating for a moment, Yichen walked in anyway. As far as the eye could see, both sides of the streets of the outer ring were filled with stalls displaying all sorts of things. There were ancient gold, silver, jewelry, red agate, amber, agarwood, ebony, coins, porcelain, calligraphy, and paintings, and so on. Yichen glanced through those items one by one and secretly shook his head. To him, those items were worthless. Some of the so-called treasures were even fakes. He had only taken a few steps when he heard a voice mixed with a Beijing accent. "Brother, take a look. I have whatever you want here. I guarantee that you will be satisfied." Yichun turned his head to look and saw that it was a skinny middle-aged man who had spoken earlier. There was a warm smile on the man's face, and his eyes were almost squinting into slits. There was a small stall in front of him. It was no more than 3 meters in length and width, and it was covered with a red bedsheet. There were dozens of items of various sizes on the bedsheet. Noticing that what he said had caught Yi Chen's attention, the middle-aged man was getting more and more enthusiastic. The middle-aged man became more and more enthusiastic. He picked up a purple sand-colored snuff bottle and boasted, "Brother, I can tell that you have an extraordinary background and are knowledgeable. You can take a look at this snuff bottle. I'm not bragging, but this was used by the Qianlong Emperor." Yichen took a glance at it and stretched his arm out to take the snuff bottle. He pointed at the few English letters at the bottom of the bottle and said wryly, "Didn't the Qing dynasty die a long time ago?" The few English letters were Madine China. Chun Hozi slapped his head and smiled awkwardly. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I took the wrong one. I'll get you another one." Yichen glanced at the items on the stall again. He smiled and turned around in an attempt to leave. However, he turned his head to look at the stall the moment he turned around. To be exact, he was looking at something on the stall. It was approximately the size of a walnut and was black. It was irregular and looked like a black lump. It was inconspicuous. However, nobody knew that there was a treasure in Yi Chen's body called the immortal drift bottle. Back when he was drowned in the river, he found the immortal drift bottle at the bottom of the river. Not only did he survive, but he even traveled to the cultivation world. With the help of the immortal drift bottle, he became an immortal in 3,000 years. Meanwhile, the immortal drift bottle only had one function. The immortal drift bottle would produce a mysterious green liquid under the moonlight every full moon. The mysterious green liquid could ripen any kind of spirit medicine. For example, it could turn a 50-year-old ginseng into a 100-year-old, 200-year-old, or even 500-year-old ginseng. Yichen had named it the immortal drift bottle and kept it a secret. Even his most trusted disciple, Yu Wenshuan, had no idea about it. Although Yu Wenshuan had usurped the Heavenly Emperor's position, he had no idea that the Heavenly Emperor's position was just an object to Yichun. The immortal drift bottle was the most important thing. The reason why Yichun stopped walking earlier was that he sensed the immortal drift bottle in his body shaking. It was the first time the immortal drift bottle had moved since he returned to Earth. Yichun bent down quietly and picked up the black lump in his hand as he thought to this point. He said expressionlessly, "How much is this?" "Oh, this? Just give me whatever you want," Chen Hozi said by instinct and stopped talking all of a sudden. His little eyes could not stop rolling. He grinned slyly and gave Yichen a thumbs up. "You're indeed an expert. I can't believe that you recognized the real treasure of the stall with just a glance." 500. Yichun interrupted. "Cough, cough, cough." Chen Hozi could not stop coughing. He almost choked to death. "I risked my life to find this on the Mount Tai Wonder. You know about the Mount Tai Wonder, don't you? It was on the news a few days ago. It's a miracle. Something that comes out of miracle can. In reality, he was purely bullsh ting. He had found a black lump when he was collecting trash in the countryside. He had no idea what it was. He had taken it to a few treasure pavilions later on, but the answer he got was that it was a pile of trash that was worthless. 200. The corner of Chun Hozi's lips twitched hard as he could not stop secretly cursing. He forced a tear out of his eye and said, Brother, how is this bargaining? You're more like killing me. How about this? You could take 500. I have an 80-year-old mother and a baby waiting to be fed. Goodbye. Yichen put the item down and turned around to leave. Hey. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. Chun Hozi stopped him immediately and pretended to look like he was in pain. Sure, 200 it is. I've suffered a great loss this time. I'll treat it as making a friend, brother. Yichen took out 200 yuan from his pocket and gave it to him. Chun Hozi bent down and picked up the black lump. He put it in a plastic bag and was about to pass it to Yichen. At that moment, an unusually arrogant voice came from behind them. Wait. Chapter 9. Yichen looked towards the source of the voice and saw a young man walking over arrogantly from 2 meters away. The young man had a handsome face, but he did not look well. He wore an Armani casual t-shirt with a pair yellow bead bracelet hanging on his left wrist. There was a dark green jade ring on his thumb. The most eye-catching thing about him was the big, long, gold chain on his chest. There was a golden longevity lock at the end of the big gold chain. Meanwhile, there were 3 to 5 lackeys following behind the young man. They looked submissive and were in cahoots with each other. From afar, they looked like thugs going on patrol. Oh my, isn't this Master Gu? It's been a few days since I've seen you. Chun Hozi was elated. He jogged to greet him immediately, smiling so widely that his face looked like a chrysanthemum. Young Master Gu grunted and said impatiently, Chun Hozi, don't play dumb with me. Hurry up and give me that thing. I want it. But Chun Hozi looked at Yichun next to him and said with a troubled expression, Master Gu, I've sold that thing to this brother. Chun Hozi knew the person in front of him very well. Not only was he rich, but he also liked to collect trinkets, especially those strange things that others could not name. Master Gu only looked at Yichun then. After taking a good look at him, he then looked at the plastic bag in Chun Hozi's hand. He said in slight disdain, You haven't given me the thing, have you? How much did you sell it for? He observed the black lump through the transparent plastic bag as he spoke. He said while squinting, What's this? It's dry and numb. It's not round at all. I really want to eat it. 200 yuan. I risked my life to get this from the Mount Tai wonder. Chun Hozi wanted to repeat what he said earlier by instinct. Slap. He was slapped on the face before he was done speaking. Speak like a human. Chun Hozi's expression froze, and he was completely honest now. He said to Yi Chun, Master Gu, to be honest, I found this in the village a few days ago. I've no idea what it is. Even a manager of the Precious Treasure Pavilion can't recognize it. He glanced at Yi Chun next to him guiltily after saying that. However, Yi Chun remained expressionless as if he did not hear anything. Not bad, not bad. I like things that experts like you can't even recognize. How about this? I'll take the 1,000 yuan. I'll study it when I get back, Master Gu said while rubbing his chin. He did not take Yi Chun seriously at all. Chun Hozi's eyes turned green. He turned his head and said to Yi Chun while grinning, Brother, I'm sorry. Master Gu is more of a pervert, so he... 1,000 yuan? It was 5 times more than the previous price, which was equivalent to half a month's income. Yi Chun said expressionlessly, Boss Chun, are you saying that you can go back on your word and sell what belongs to me to him because he's paying more than me? I'm really sorry. Chun Hozi rubbed his palms and smiled awkwardly. In reality, there was something that he did not say. Yi Chun looked like someone without a powerful background, but any smart person would not offend Master Gu for him. Master Gu, who was standing aside, was getting impatient. Chun Hozi, what the F***ck are you waiting for? Give it to me now. Chun Hozi nodded and was going to pass the bag to Master Gu. Wait, an emotionless voice came. Chun Hozi turned his head to look by instinct. However, he saw Yi Chun grinning at him. Chun Hozi, do you still want to follow the rules? Yi Chun's voice was neither loud nor soft, but it gave Chun Hozi an invisible mental deterrent. He gulped and looked at Master Gu with a troubled expression. Master Gu, what do you think about this? The smile on Master Gu's face froze as he glared coldly at Yi Chun. Country bumpkin, do you want to go against me, Gu Shaokuan? I'm not afraid to tell you that you're nothing to me. I'm richer than you, more powerful than you, and I have more people than you do. My words are the rules. Scram now if you know what's good for you. The onlookers had a change of expression when they heard that. When the onlookers heard this, their expressions changed. The wealthy family of Tianan City. The wealthy family of Tianan City. Yichen looked into his eyes fearlessly and enunciated word for word. Nobody can take what I want away from me. Gu Shaoquan walked to Yichen and stared at him from a close distance. He said with a scoff, "What a coincidence. Nobody dares to say no to what I want. I'm taking it today. You can't take it away." Yichen said coldly. Gu Shaoquan chuckled. "Try me." Yichen looked straight at him. "Try me. Chen Hozi, give it to me now. I have money. I'll give you 5,000. Gu Shaoquan smiled instead of being mad. Chen Hozi was over the moon. He walked over and handed the bag to Yi Chen with excitement written all over his face. Yi Chen grinned. "Chen Hozi, I'll ask you one last time. Do you still want the rules?" Chen Hozi stopped walking and revealed a smile that was uglier than crying on his face. "There's a rule in the antique world. After the buyer and the seller come to an agreement, the other buyer can't interfere. The seller can't break the agreement unless the original buyer backs out. I've already given you the money earlier. However, you didn't give me the item. Everyone around here can see it." A ferocious aura exploded from Yi Chen's body. "So, Chen Hozi, are you trying to break the rules?" The antique world was equivalent to the market in the cultivation world. There was such a rule in the market too. Otherwise, how could the business be run if everyone broke the rules with their power? Chen Hozi fell to the ground with a thud, his face extremely pale. Yi Chen was right. There was indeed such an unwritten rule in the antique world. In layman's terms, it was first come, first served. Indeed, the item was in his hands. He could ignore what Yi Chen said and sell it to Gu Shaoquan directly. However, that would mean that he, Chen Hozi, was a man of his word. His reputation would be ruined, and he would not be able to survive in the antique world in the future. Chen Hozi's expression changed a few times. He said after taking a deep breath in, "Brother, I'll give you the item." Chen Hozi, admit defeat. Gu Shaoquan, who was standing aside, was enraged. "Chen Hozi, Gu Shaoquan, are you trying to break the rules too?" Yi Chen took a step forward and looked at him in a threatening manner. The aura on his body was unshakable like a mountain. "You?" Gu Shaoquan panicked. "You piece of trash." Yi Chen interrupted him first. "Apart from bullying the weak with your family background, what else can you do? In this world, no matter how much power and wealth the Gu family had, so what? Can you suppress everyone here? Rules are rules. Of course, if you insist on breaking the rules, then I won't have to either, because nobody can take away what I, Yi Chen, have set my eyes on." At that moment, a ferocious gleam flashed through Yi Chen's eyes. He was extremely domineering, shocking the people around. One must know that Gu Shaoquan was the young master of the Gu family. Gu Shaoquan glared deadly at Yi Chen as his face turned pale. He was breathing heavily through his nose. That went on for approximately 10 seconds. He suddenly laughed out loud and scoffed. "Bumpkin, I know the rules better than you do. It's yours now. I can't believe that I fought a bumpkin like you over a piece of trash. Now that I think about it, it's really beneath me. Only a bumpkin like you would spend 200 yuan to buy a piece of trash that nobody would want even if I gave it to you for free. A bumpkin is a bumpkin." Gu Shaoquan took off the pear yellow bracelet from his left hand as he spoke to this point. He said as if he was showing off, "Do you know what this is? This is an old item that belonged to a third-rank minister during the Chongzhen era of the Ming dynasty. You won't be able to buy a single bead on it, even if you spend your entire life." Chen Hozi's eyes turned green. He went forward to look at the bracelet carefully and said in disbelief, "Gu, young Master Gu, could this be? Could this be the one that was sold for 1.8 million at the auction a while ago?" Exclamations came from the crowd as soon as he was done speaking. "You're smart, brat." Gu Shaoquan responded in an extremely arrogant manner. He looked coldly at Yi Chen, trying to see something on his face such as shock, envy, and regret. "Oh." However, Yi Chen merely responded expressionlessly. "Oh." The smile on Gu Shaoquan's face froze. He took off the thumb ring on his hand in rage and said, "This was worn by He Chun during the Qianlong Emperor of the Qing dynasty. Do you know how much it's worth? 4 3 million yuan. The crowd gasped again. Chun Hosie's eyes were green like a wolf that had been starving for a few days. Oh, Gu Shaoquan was going crazy facing Yi Chen's coldness. He felt like he had punched the air. He tore the big gold necklace on his chest while his eyes were red. He kissed the longevity lock and said, "Bumpkin, I'll show you my most valuable item. This is the longevity lock that the Ming Guangzong Emperor Zhu Chongluo ordered the craftsman to make for the third prince, Zhu Yuji. The third prince was given the title of Prince Qi Si after his death." "Oh," Yichen responded again. Gu Shaoquan shouted, You're courting death." Chapter 10. Gu Shaoquan was shocked. He looked at the longevity lock in his hand immediately and said with a scoff, "Are you saying that my longevity lock is a ferocious weapon?" Why? Yichen chuckled and said, "Because I can smell the corpse stench on it from far away. Because it's been worn by a dead man for over 400 years. It's been corroded by corpse water and rotten flesh. I'm not scared. Don't King scare me." Gu Shaoquan shuddered by instinct, but he pretended to be calm and glared at Yi Chen angrily. "Scare you? Do you think you're worthy of that?" Yi Chen smiled in disdain. "You said that Ming Guangzong Zhu Chongluo made this longevity lock for the third prince, Zhu Yuji. Let me ask you, how old was Zhu Yuji when he died?" Gu Shaoquan was completely dumbstruck. Other than eating, drinking, and having fun with women, how would he know anything about this? Not only him, but even the lackeys behind him were also confused. "Let me ask you again. What's Zhu Chongluo's name? How'd he die?" Gu Shaoquan had no idea what Yichen was asking. He could not help but say angrily, "Don't talk nonsense with me. What does this have to do with my longevity lock?" "Dumbass. You piece of trash." Yichen's extremely cold voice came, making Gu Shaoquan look terrible. Just when he was going to flare up, he heard Yi Chen speak again. "You said that Zhu Yuji was the one who wore your longevity lock, but Zhu Yuji died when he was only 7 years old. Ming Guangzong Zhu Chongluo was also known as the 1-month emperor. He wanted to rule the world when he first ascended to the throne, but he died suddenly after only a month. The father and son died one after another, and their resentment soared. Since the tomb was robbed and their bones were exposed in the wilderness, the resentment transformed into a resentful dragon that was absorbed by the longevity lock. However, you can't bear to part with such a ferocious weapon. You even kissed and touched it. You have no idea that the resentment has already entered your body and is slowly corroding it. If not for your ancestors' blessing, the grass on your grave would have been 15 feet tall. What right does a piece of trash like you have to shout in front of me?" As Yi Chen spoke, the crowd went into an uproar. When they looked at Yi Chen again, there was a hint of admiration in their eyes. Who was this person? How did he know so much? Gu Shaoquan screamed in horror. He hurriedly threw away the golden lock in his hand and took out a tissue to wipe his hands. He wished he could wipe off a layer of skin. "Who exactly are you?" Gu Shaoquan glared at Yi Chen with his eyes wide open. Horror filled his face. He had lost a lot of face today. Yi Chen placed his hands behind his back and said emotionlessly, "I'm someone you can't afford to offend. Kill him for me. There is no one in Tianan City that I, Gu Shaoquan, cannot afford to offend." Gu Shaoquan immediately exploded. His entire face was as red as paint. The few lackeys shrieked in rage and charged at Yi Chen without any explanation. Chen Hozi wanted to cry, but he had no tears. Never had he thought that a worthless item would trigger such an incident. To him, Yi Chen, the reckless young man, was dead meat. It was not that he could not bear to kill him, but he was worried that he would have to bear the responsibility later. However, he looked like he had just seen a ghost. Facing the 5 people's attack, Yi Chen did not run. Instead, he took the initiative to walk up and slapped one of them. As 5 slaps were heard, the few of them who were so excited as if they had taken Viagra earlier were moaning on the ground in the blink of an eye. It was like slapping a mosquito. His face hurt just by listening to it. F***CK. Chun Hozi rubbed his eyes in disbelief. He was so shocked that he could not help but curse. What a man. He's a real man. Master Gu had kicked a steel plate this time. The crowd gasped. Gu Shaoquan was so scared that he almost peed his pants. Just when he was going to run, joy appeared on his face all of a sudden. He looked behind Yichun and said, "Sister, help me." Yichun turned his head to look and saw the crowd, making a path slowly. 3 people were walking over at a high speed. There were 2 men and a lady. The one leading was a lady in black training attire. She had delicate features and a capable aura. Meanwhile, there was an old man in his 60s and a young man with a buzz cut and a singlet behind her. "It's Miss Gu Yingying and Old Master Gu." Nobody knew who shouted, but the crowd went into an uproar. The 2 important people of the Gu family were here. Even the big boss, Old Master Gu, was among them. Chen Hozi could not stop shuddering in fear. Yi Chun expressionlessly watched the people approaching. Gu Shaoquan pointed at him and said, "Sister, Grandpa, this brat bullied me. You guys must avenge me." Gu Yingying glanced at the few people lying on the ground. Subsequently, she said to Yi Chun coldly, "Did you beat them up?" "I did. So what?" Yi Chun remained unmoved with his arms behind his back. Gu Yingying smiled instead of being mad. "So what? I'll just beat them up." As soon as she was done speaking, she shouted and quickly kicked Yi Chun with her middle leg. She turned her shoulder, swung her waist, twisted her hips, lifted her buttocks. The series of movements were unusually clean. She was well-versed in martial arts, yet she was different from it. There was a faint force in her movements. Gu Shaoquan, who was standing aside, could not stop smirking. "Bumpkin, you're in for it now." He knew his sister very well. She was a martial arts fanatic, especially after her grandpa's guidance. 8 to 10 regular hunks were no match for her. The old man in his 60s far away frowned. This girl should have just taught him a lesson. "I can't believe she's so heavy-handed." Ahu asked her to stop now. Clearly, even he did not have high hopes for Yichun. The young man with the buzz cut, named Ahu, forced a smile. Just when he was going to stop her, Gu Yingying shouted, "F***CK off." A furious roar came. A furious roar was heard as Yichun kicked Gu Yingying's chest directly. Gu Yingying was flung out. Apart from his child's mother, he had never known what it meant to be gentle to a woman. Dead silence filled the place. Gu Shaoquan was so shocked that his eyeballs almost fell out. How is that possible? Ahu was shocked at first, then he pulled out his gun by instinct. The moment he pulled out his gun, a force hit his hand. Ahu's hand shook intensely. Then he could not help but kneel on one knee onto the ground. Horror filled his face. Attacking through the air? This technique. Yichun looked at him coldly. His voice was chilling. "Don't force me to kill you. Is this true energy release? Attacking through the air?" The old man's pupils shrunk, and he felt something sweet in his throat. At that moment, Gu Yingying, who was thrown out, stood up and charged at Yichun again. Her pretty face was embarrassed and enraged because Yichun had kicked her chest earlier. "Yingying, stop now. Don't be rude to the master." The old man in his 60s had a change of expression and stopped her immediately. Gu Yingying's beautiful eyes were filled with rage. "Grandpa, move away." "I am. How can I kick her?" "Not only that, you use so much force. She's still hurting now." "Shut up." The old man scolded her and subsequently walked to Yichun. He took a deep breath and said while clasping his fists in all seriousness, "I'm Gu Yongang. Greetings, master. I hope that you won't blame us for not recognizing you." At that moment, Gu Yingying was stunned, Gu Shaoquan was stunned, and Chen Hozi rubbed his eyes as he watched in disbelief. One must know that old Master Gu represented the entire wealthy Gu family. It was not an exaggeration to say that he was the leader of the family. However, he was apologizing to a young man. Old Master Gu turned his head to look at Gu Yingying as if he did not see that. Yingying apologized to the master now. True energy release, attacking through the air. Nobody knew the meaning of those words better than him. There were tens of millions of people in the entire Tianan, but there was only one such person. He was the Tianan #1, Yuan Bupo. He stood on top of the clouds in Tianan and overlooked the entire world. Even the few wealthy families in Tianan had to look up to him. Gu Yingying jolted and wanted to reject him by instinct. However, she walked to Yichun and said while clenching her teeth when she saw her grandpa's serious and determined expression, is sorry. Grandpa, are you crazy? This brat humiliated us. Forget that you didn't teach him a lesson, but you're apologizing to him? Gu Shaoquan shouted in disbelief. If you can't do it, call my third uncle immediately and get him to deploy a battalion here. I don't believe this brat can fight. Slap. What he got in response was a hard slap from the old master. Chapter 11. Grandpa, you actually hit me for an outsider? Gu Shaoquan covered his face and stared blankly at the old man. This was the first time in his life that he had been beaten by the old man. In the past, no matter what mistakes he had made, no matter how much trouble he had caused, the old man would at most give him a few words of reprimand. Unfilial son, kneel down. The old man trembled with anger. Otherwise, I'll kick you out of the Gu family right now and let you fend for yourself. Plop. Gu Shaoquan knelt onto the ground immediately. This time, he did it without hesitation. He realized that the old master was clearly enraged. Although he knelt, he turned his head away from Yi Chun, looking arrogant. The old master stopped looking at him. Instead, he walked to a stall and borrowed a cigarette. He handed it to Yi Chun with both hands. Sir, if this little B** start offends you in any way, you can smoke him with this. Smoke him to death. Just leave me half alive. Yi Chun glanced at him wryly. He did not extend his arm to take it, nor did he say anything. One becomes shrewd with age. One becomes shrewd with age. The old man's acting was quite good. Gu Shaoquan's face turned green. He wanted to stand up immediately, but what welcomed him was a heavy blow from the tobacco pipe, which directly made him kneel down again. The pain made him grimace, and tears flowed out of his eyes. Gu Yingying could not help but open her mouth, but she dared not stand up to plead for mercy. The expressions on everyone's faces were already numb. Chun Hosie's mouth was so big that he could swallow a husky. The old master sighed secretly when he saw that Yi Chun did not say anything. He then turned around and said to Monkey Chun beside him, Tell me, what exactly is going on? Chun Hosie shuddered. He took 2 steps forward, bowed, and told the whole story without any exaggeration. He did not dare to side with anyone. When he heard that the longevity lock was a demonic weapon, the old master's face changed. As if he had thought of something, he slapped Gu Shaoquan's head. You idiot, Mister's words save your life. Not only did you not thank him, you even attacked him. How did my Gu family produce such a bastard like you? Grandpa, how can you believe his nonsense? Gu Shaoquan sneered. The old man suddenly burst into tears. You wastrel, have you forgotten how your father died? My dad. Gu Shaoquan's expression changed drastically, and then a wisp of deep shock and disbelief surged onto his face. The old man sighed. This longevity lock was first received by your father, and he treasured it as much as you do. In the end, he died in a car accident less than a year later, and you, an idiot, secretly took it out from his room. At this point, the old master's expression turned fierce. You lived with Feng Yuan for 3 years, and during those 3 years, Feng Yuan got pregnant 5 times. In the end, she miscarried all of them. Haven't you realized anything yet? It's all because of this longevity lock. As the old master's voice fell, Gu Shaoquan slumped to the ground as if he had been struck by lightning. His mind was buzzing nonstop, and he was no longer as arrogant as before. He had been married for 3 years, but he had never had a child. His wife had gotten pregnant 5 times, but she miscarried for no reason each time. The oldest fetus was even 7 to 8 months old. The Gu family had hired many famous doctors to diagnose it. They had also gone to major hospitals in the country and abroad. They had even prayed to Buddha in temples, but it was useless. He had never thought about that in the beginning. However, after connecting the dots between Yi Chun and the old master's words, he felt like he had been enlightened. Not only did his beloved longevity lock kill his father, but it even caused his children to die in their wombs. How was that a longevity lock? It was clearly a death lock. Most importantly, his wife, Feng Yuan, seemed to have gotten pregnant again last month. Gu Shaoquan gulped as he thought to this point. He knelt before Yi Chun one step after another. He placed his head on the ground and said while sobbing, Master, sir, I'm sorry. I look down on you. As long as you can forgive me, you can punish me however you want. Gu Shaoquan, won't frown at all. He slapped himself as he spoke, and he used a lot of strength. The people who were watching from the side were dumbfounded. I'm begging you to forgive this disappointing grandson of mine, sir. The old master was about to kneel as tears streamed down his face. However, he realized that he could no longer kneel as he was halfway there. It was as if a pair of invisible hands were holding him up. He was secretly horrified. Was this the power of a master? You don't have to do this, old general. Yichen shook his head and looked at Gu Shaoquan. You should be glad that you have a great-grandfather. I've been on the battlefield for half of my life, and I've killed countless enemies. This is a merit for the country and the people. That's why I've arranged a blessing for you guys. It's also because of this blessing that you've survived until now. Now, give me the longevity lock. Gu Shaoquan was overjoyed to hear that. He got up and picked up the longevity lock from the ground before handing it to Yi Chun respectfully. The old master could not help but say, "Sir, this longevity lock." In reality, he wanted to say that since the longevity lock was a demonic weapon, it should be destroyed. Don't worry about it. Just watch. Yi Chun smiled and stretched his arm out to point at the longevity lock. A golden spiritual energy gushed into the longevity lock directly. 2 dragon roars came from the longevity lock. There was resentment, indignation, and sadness in the roars. They seemed to be trying to break free. The old master, Gu Shaoquan, and the rest were horrified. The sound sent chills down their spines, especially Gu Shaoquan. If he was still indignant earlier, he was completely convinced now. Even his expression was filled with admiration. I'm the heavenly emperor, the emperor of all immortals. How can I allow a tiny, resentful dragon like you to behave atrociously in the mortal world? Even if you were the emperor when you were alive, you have to worship me when you see me. The great Ming dynasty has fallen. Yi Chun secretly scoffed. He lifted his arm again to release spiritual energy. The roars in the longevity lock faded gradually, and eventually, everything returned to silence. Subsequently, a shocking scene appeared. A faint black energy slowly came out of Gu Shaoquan's head. The black energy disappeared as soon as it rose into the air, and he looked much better. Gu Shaoquan looked at himself and was pleasantly surprised. "Grandpa, sir, I feel much better now." "Thank you, sir." The old master bowed in utmost seriousness. Gu Shaoquan only snapped back to his senses then. He knelt hard. "Thank you for saving my life, sir. However, can you save my wife too? She and the baby in her belly are innocent. I'm shameless enough to ask for your help, sir. Just tell me what you need. My Gu family will do anything for you." The old master begged with passion written all over his face. Yi Chun frowned and said after a few seconds of silence, "Do you have a pen and paper?" Yes. Gu Shaoquan was over the moon. He looked at Chun Hozi, who was standing aside immediately. Chun Hozi found a pen and paper while clumsily. He then passed the bag with the black lump to Yi Chun. He looked like he was trying to suck up to Yi Chun. "Sir, I'm not feeling well too. I only have 3 seconds when I'm doing it with my wife." Gu Ying laughed out loud while her cheeks were blushing. The old master was stunned, while Gu Shaoquan's lips twitched hard. He glared at him. "You've been masturbating too much, and that's why you're withering. You need to see a Chinese doctor." Chun Hozi looked awkward. Yi Chun took the pen and paper without saying a word. He wrote down the names of many herbs on it, and subsequently passed it to the old master. "Gather the herbs according to the names on it, and send them to me. I'll make time to visit your house for treatment." "No problem." The old master put the prescription away carefully and proceeded to say passionately, "Sir, shall we have dinner together? I'd like to thank you properly." "It's all right. I have to pick up my daughter from school." Yi Chun shook his head. It was the afternoon in the blink of an eye. Ming Ming should be out of school soon. The old man nodded in disappointment. "Okay, Ahu, drive Sir back personally and write down Sir's contact information." The young man with the buzz cut named Ahu nodded. Gu Shaoquan took out a bank card and shoved it into Yi Chun's hand. He said while smiling, "Sir, there's 10 million yuan in here. The password is the last 6 digits of the card number. Consider it a small gift from me." Just when Yi Chun was going to reject him, he saw Gu Shaoquan say, Please don't reject me. Otherwise, the old master will hang me up and whip me hard with his belt. Oh yeah, you can look for Brother Who if you need anything. Yichin put the card away while smiling. He then got into Ahu's Bentley and left. The old master watched the car disappear. He then turned his head to glare at Gu Shaoquan after the three of them got into Gu Yingying's car. I'll teach you a lesson when we get home. Gu Shaoquan shrunk his neck. Gu Yingying, on the other hand, had a cold expression on her face. Clearly, she was still holding a grudge against Yi Chun for kicking her chest earlier. The old master comforted her, seeming to have guessed what she was thinking. Don't do anything stupid, little girl. Grandpa, I can't take this line down, Gu Yingying said while clenching her teeth in hatred. She had grown up, her family background aside. Her beauty alone made her the center of attention no matter where she went. Yi Chun was the first person to treat her like that. She clenched her teeth as soon as she recalled that a certain part of her body was still hurting. The old master said in all seriousness, you have to, even if you can't take it lying down. It's your brother's fault today. You attacked him without understanding the situation. You're being unreasonable. Moreover, Sir saved your brother's life despite what you did. I'll fight him one-on-one sooner or later. Gu Yingying stomped her feet angrily. One-on-one. The old master forced a smile. Sir's ability is beyond our imagination. I'm afraid that he's the only one in the entire Tianan who can do that. Grandpa, is he really that powerful? Gu Yingying was a little unconvinced. After all, Yichen looked like he was only 30 years old. Even if he had been practicing martial arts since he was in his mother's womb, he should have only been 20 to 30 years old. The old master stopped smiling and said in all seriousness, do you think a martial Dao master is powerful? I've been practicing for half my life, but I've only just unblocked my conception meridian. Gu Yingying's pretty face had a slight change of expression, but she said nothing more. What a pity. The old master sighed in deep thought. Gu Yingying was confused. What's a pity, Grandpa? It's a pity that Sir has a kid. Otherwise, I'd be planning to marry you off. The old master looked lost. Chapter 12. At the Little Swan Kindergarten in Tianan City. It was rush hour at the moment. As the bell rang, cute little faces walked out of school one after another. Meanwhile, many parents were standing at the entrance to pick up their children. Yichen stood aside and watched the group of children carefully with his eyes wide open. He was afraid that Meng Meng would be among the crowd and miss him. He had never picked up a child from school before. Never had he thought that it would be so heartwarming and nerve-wracking. Perhaps this was what it felt like to be a parent for the first time. Ahu asked for Yichen's phone number after sending him there. Yichen recalled that he had just returned and did not have anything, so he got Ahu to bring him to the ATM nearby to withdraw some money. He then bought a phone and a SIM card. He then called his mother to tell her that he was coming to pick Meng Meng up. He would be lying if he said he was not envious of the other children acting like a spoiled child to their parents. Yichen's eyes lit up just when he was thinking about that. He saw a lady in a white chiffon dress walking out with a little girl. The lady was only 24 or 25 years old. She had a pretty face and an extraordinary aura. She attracted many adults' attention as soon as she walked out. Meanwhile, the little girl wore a light black school uniform with 2 braids on her head. She had a straight little nose and a pair of big, watery eyes. She was a beauty. Who else could it be but Meng Meng? Meng Meng, Yichen called out and walked over rather excitedly. Meng Meng scoffed and turned her head away, refusing to look at him. The smile on Yichen's face froze, and he secretly sighed. The lady smiled politely after taking a good look at him. Hi, you must be Yi Mengmeng's father, right? I'm Mengmeng's teacher, Olan. Wulan used to be the one who picked Meng Meng up. However, Wulan had called her today, saying that Yi Chan was picking up the little girl. Therefore, Olan recognized Yi Chan as soon as she saw that he looked similar to the little girl. Hi, Ms. Zhou. Yi Chan nodded while smiling. Just when he was going to say something, he heard the little girl shriek all of a sudden. He's not my father, Ms. Zhou. He's not my father. Yi Chan forced a smile. He could be calm and domineering to others. He could even laugh it off. However, when it came to his daughter, he was helpless. After all, he owed the mother and daughter too much. Olan squatted down and patted the little girl's head. Meng Meng, you can't talk to your daddy like that. Have you forgotten that your teacher taught you to be a polite and filial child? Yichen glanced at Olan with utmost gratitude upon hearing that. The little fellow pursed her lips and looked stubbornly at the crowd, as if she was looking for someone. Where's Grandma? I want Grandma to pick me up. Grandma has something on today, so she can't come. That's why she asked Daddy to pick you up. Yichen comforted while smiling. Olan glanced at her helplessly and said while smiling, Grandma has a hard time at work. It's the same for Daddy to pick you up. Ming Ming, can you wait at the security guard's place for a while? I want to say a few words to your father. The little girl held her hand tightly and wanted to reject her by instinct. Olan pulled a long face. Be good, Ming Ming. Otherwise, I'll be mad. The little fellow nodded reluctantly. Olan turned her head and said to Yichen, while smiling after sending her to the security guard's office and greeting him, Mr. Yi, can we talk? Yichen looked at the little girl and nodded after confirming that she was fine. The duo walked in the school field. Yichen had mixed feelings as he looked at his daughter's school environment. He said sincerely, Ms. Zhou, thank you for taking care of Meng Meng all this while. He saw very clearly that the other kids walked out on their own, while Meng Meng walked out with Olan's hand. One could tell how Olan usually treated Meng Meng. You're welcome. Actually, I like Meng Meng a lot. Olan chuckled softly, but her pretty face looked rather sad. But Meng Meng is quite pitiful. I heard from Annie Lan that you disappeared before she was born. Her mother disappeared when she was just 2 years old. The little girl was diagnosed with leukemia when she was 3.5 years old. Although Meng Meng and I have nothing to do with each other, and I'm paid to eat, my biggest wish is for this child to grow up healthily. Yichen felt a little heavy in his heart. He said after taking a deep breath in, Mr. Yi, you don't have to explain anything. Speaking of which, I'm an outsider, so I shouldn't be asking about your family. But Meng Meng is really pitiful. Although she's only 4 years old, she's much more mature than her peers. Olan sighed while looking heartbroken. My classmates always tease me that I'm a kid who has no parents. Meng Meng doesn't cry. Instead, she pinches and scratches the people who tease her. She offended her classmates. So many of them don't play with her. That's why she might be a little lonely and has low self-esteem. Yichen listened quietly and turned around to look at the security guard's office quietly. Meng Meng likes to draw when she's alone, especially drawing pictures of the sky and the grassland. I asked her before, and she said that she heard that the stars are the closest to the grassland. Meanwhile, people who disappear from this world will become stars in the sky. Therefore, Meng Meng's dream is to draw stars on the grassland with her drawing board when she grows up. Then, she'll be closer to her daddy. Yichen's body jolted slightly upon hearing that. He felt like he was about to cry. He had been missing for 5 years. Nobody knew if he was alive or dead. Perhaps everyone thought that he was dead, including his parents. His daughter came up with such a thought under the influence of what she saw and heard. In her heart, her father was already dead, which was a kind of despair. Meanwhile, his sudden appearance before her was equivalent to setting a fire in the vast desert. There was no passion or light that could be ignited. Olan suddenly turned around and said to him in all seriousness, Mr. Yi, in reality, Meng Meng acknowledges you deep down in her heart. She's a kid after all. Like most kids, she yearns for a father's and a mother's love. However, she's a little conflicted. Perhaps it's related to her experience after she matured earlier. That's right. She's such a stubborn and lonely little girl. Yichen nodded. One could say that apart from his parents, Olan before him knew Meng Meng the best. If she did not say that today, he would never be able to walk into his daughter's heart. Olan looked at the time and said while smiling, All right, the little girl must be getting impatient from waiting. Mr. Yi, let's call it a day. Thank you so much, Ms. Zhou. Yichen stretched his hand out and thanked her from the bottom of his heart. Olan shook his hand softly and stopped there. You don't have to thank me. It's my duty. Yichen smiled and returned to the guardroom with her. At that moment, the little girl was pacing back and forth at the door. She was clearly impatient. Olan squatted down and smoothed the hair on her forehead. She said while smiling, Go home with Daddy, Meng Meng. Don't forget what I taught you. Listen to Daddy. She got up and walked out as she spoke. Goodbye, Ms. Zhou. The little girl waved at her reluctantly. Yichin held his head down and said to the little girl after she walked far away, Ming Ming, can Daddy carry you home? Oomph, only kids have to carry me. I'm not a kid. Ming Ming lifted her chin proudly and walked in front. Yichin followed her immediately, afraid that she would fall or be hit by the cars on the road. When they passed by the entrance of a supermarket, the little girl turned her head to look at the beautiful goat cartoon bag in the window by instinct. There was a hint of eagerness in her eyes. Chapter 13. Yichin squatted after taking a deep breath in. He tried his best to be as tall as the little girl and asked while smiling, Ming Ming, do you like this bag? I don't. It's so ugly and expensive. The little girl shook her head in disdain, but she could not move her eyes away no matter what. Yichin smiled guiltily and walked into the supermarket while holding her hand. There was a lady cashier sitting at the cashier's counter. Yichin walked straight to the display window while holding the little girl's hand. He said to the lady cashier who was following him, How much is this bag? Sir, this is custom-made by DreamWorks Animation. I'm afraid the price is a little. The lady cashier took a good look at Yichin and said while smiling unnaturally, Just tell me how much it is. $8.88. Yichin nodded. Please pack it up for me. It's too expensive. I don't want it. The little girl shook her head and walked out as she spoke. Grandpa and Grandma work hard to earn money. They have to buy medicine for me. My bag isn't broken yet, so I can still carry it. Yichin sniffled. Ming Ming, Daddy has money. Daddy can afford it. Daddy will earn money to support you guys, okay? The little girl looked at Yichin quietly. A few seconds later, tears rolled down her cheeks all of a sudden. I'm sick. I'm dying. It's useless to buy it. Yichin's brain short-circuited at that moment. He looked at her blankly, feeling shaken. Are these really the words of a 4-year-old child? The lady cashier stood aside and watched the scene before her quietly. I know that I'm sick, and I'm very sick. My classmates say that I'm a money loser and that I have to spend a lot of money. Both Grandma and Grandpa are lying to me. The little girl held back her tears and said weakly, Grandma and Grandpa are old now. They're always being bullied by bad guys to earn money for me to treat my illness. Yichin sniffled. Ming Ming, Olan was right. There were too many things hidden in the 4-year-old girl's heart. Although she didn't know what leukemia was, she knew that it was very difficult to treat. Even her grandparents couldn't cure it, even if they risked their lives. The little girl subconsciously took a step back and stubbornly bit her lips. I'm very sad. I don't want Grandpa and Grandma to work hard. I don't want Grandpa and Grandma to spend money on me. I'm not afraid of death. I only miss Mommy. I can't even remember what Mommy looks like. The female cashier secretly wiped away her tears and quietly retreated to the door, leaving the father and daughter alone. However, Yichin could not hold it in anymore. He carried the little girl in his embrace and said while choking despite her resistance, Trust Daddy, Ming Ming. You won't die. Daddy has a way to cure you. Even if I die, I'll go to hell to get you back. Not only will I cure you, but I'll also bring you to see Mommy safely. Hearing the word mother, the little fellow no longer resisted, and a glimmer of light bloomed in his dim eyes. Mother? Could Ming Ming still see her mother? Will Mommy not want me anymore? Yes, I'll definitely see Mommy. Daddy promises that that day won't be too far away. Yichin knelt on the ground and hugged the little girl tightly. He said while patting her head softly, Mommy won't abandon you too. She loves you so much. The little girl wiped her tears and looked at Yichin with hope written all over her face. She was rather nervous. Pinky promise? Sure, Pinky promise. Pinky promise. Don't change for 100 years. Yichin smiled through his tears. He extended his finger and hooked it with hers. The little girl looked down at her broken little white shoes and said all of a sudden, Daddy. Huh? Yichin nodded while smiling. Subsequently, his expression froze as he looked at her in disbelief. W, what did you call me just now? Daddy. The little girl's head was hanging so low that it almost touched her chest. She was as shy as a little quail. Great, that's great. Yichin felt a great rush of blood rushing to his head. He had goosebumps all over his body. He stood up and picked the little girl up after saying great 3 times. He was so excited like a child. Ming Ming, call me Daddy. Ming Ming, call me Daddy. Daddy, you're suffocating me. The little girl coughed a few times and twisted her body uneasily. I'm sorry. Yi-chun put her down immediately and squatted down nervously. Is Daddy hurting you? Let me take a look. The little girl snickered and took the initiative to jump into his embrace this time. She hugged his neck with both of her hands and could not stop giggling. Daddy is a silly dear. I'm fine. Daddy, let's go home now. Otherwise, Grandpa and Grandma will be worried. Sure, let's go home. Let's go home. Yi-chun picked her up and walked to the cashier while beaming. He took out his wallet and counted 900 yuan for the female cashier. After the female cashier gave him the change, he carried the little girl and was about to leave. Sir, wait. The female cashier's voice came from behind. Yi-chun turned his head to see the female cashier walking over with a half-meter-tall Winnie the Pooh. She smiled sweetly at Meng Meng. Little girl, this is for you. The little girl's eyes lit up. However, she shrunk into Yi-chun's embrace and said timidly, Sister, we don't have any money. The female cashier snickered. This is for you. It's free. Isn't this a little inappropriate? Why don't I buy it from you? Yi-chun said in embarrassment. After all, the cashier worked for the supermarket. Her salary would be deducted if she gave the customer something without permission. The female cashier seemed to have guessed his thoughts. She glared at him and waved her hand. This supermarket belongs to my family. I'm the only daughter of the old man. Don't talk about giving me a teddy bear. Even if I burned down this store, the old man would have nothing to say. So please accept it. Yi-chun could only look at the little girl in his embrace. The little girl hesitated, but she eventually could not resist the temptation of the Winnie the Pooh. She extended both of her arms and hugged it. Her mouth was so sweet, as if she had just eaten candy. Thank you, sister. You're so beautiful. You're so smart. The female cashier touched her face while smiling. Thank you. Yi-chun thanked her and walked out of the supermarket while carrying the little girl. He arrived at Jinyang District over half an hour later. The little girl struggled out of his embrace and said to the residents who were passing by while blushing, Grandma Wong, this is my daddy. Grandma Wong, this is my daddy. Grandpa Chun, my daddy is picking me up from school. Fatty, if you dare to say that I don't have a daddy again, I'll beat you up. Don't go home crying and snitch on me. Yi-chun looked at the little girl who was showing off her daddy with a gentle expression. He felt warm inside. His daughter had finally acknowledged him. That was the happiest thing there was. He lifted his head to look north and mumbled to himself, Yuhan, our daughter has finally acknowledged me. She even said that she misses you. Wait for me. I'll come to you after I treat Meng Meng's illness. Night fell. After his parents carried Meng Meng back to her room to sleep, Yi-chun returned to his room. He lifted his hand to set up a soundproof barrier. Subsequently, he took out the black lump the size of a walnut that he had bought from the antique market and began studying it carefully. A while later, he could not help but feel a little disappointed because the thing could block divine consciousness from entering. It was not affected by external forces at all. Could it be a spiritual seed? Otherwise, why would the immortal drift bottle react? One must know that the immortal drift bottle did not even budge when faced with the immortal medicine. Yi-chun frowned and secretly made up his mind after putting the thing away. He would use the mysterious green liquid in the immortal drift bottle to ripen it on the night of the full moon. He wanted to see what this thing would grow after it was ripened. It was a sleepless night. In the next 2 days, Yi-chun spent all his time with his daughter. He would send her to school in the morning and pick her up from school in the afternoon. The relationship between father and daughter was growing rapidly. Yihai and Wulan were surprised and happy. However, they were sad to find out that they had fallen out of favor with their precious granddaughter, Meng Meng. Yi-chun was waiting. He was waiting for the news from the Gu family. The medicine list that he had written for the Gu family back then also included the ingredients for refining the Qi blood pill and the rebirth pill for Meng Meng. That was also the reason why he had agreed to treat Gu Shaokong's wife. After all, the Gu family was powerful, so it was much easier for them to find herbs in him. Chapter 14. The main purpose of Second Uncle's call was to inform Yi-chun that Yi-wen's company would start hiring today. He also said that Yi-wen would be waiting for him downstairs and asked him not to be late. Yi-chun forced a smile. Actually, He did not want to go to work at all. Firstly, if he went to work, he would not have much time to accompany Meng Meng. Secondly, he wished that he could spend every minute and every second on training. However, second, Uncle had good intentions, and Dad also wanted him to live a normal life. At the same time, downstairs of Block B of Chaoyang District, an unusually eye-catching Camaro was parked on the side of the road. The cool lines of the supercar and the eye-catching yellow paint made the passersby look at it. Bumblebee was known as the low-spec version of Lamborghini. Even if it was just a low-spec car, the starting price would still be around $400,000 to $500,000. In this neighborhood, it was still considered a luxury car. A man and a woman stood in front of Bumblebee. The man was about 26 or 27 years old. His facial features were handsome, and he was tall and handsome. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit, and his left hand, which was in his pocket, was shining with a golden light. It was a Vacheron Constantine. The woman was wearing a beige professional suit and had light makeup on her face. She was tall and slender, and a pair of nude-colored stockings accentuated her long legs. She looked like an elite in the workplace. The man lowered his head and looked at his watch. Then, he threw a piece of betel nut into his mouth and sneered, "One, this cousin of yours is quite a big shot. He made us wait here for a long time." "Stop talking, Lu Feng. I'm dying of annoyance," Yuan complained impatiently. She frowned hard as resentment filled her stomach. Dad was really too much. Why do you have to be so nosy? In this day and age, wasn't finding a job based on one's abilities? So what if he relied on his connections? If the other colleagues in the company knew that I used my connections to help my relatives, I would not be able to face them. Lu Feng comforted him with a smile. "Don't worry, I've already talked to my uncle. That kid definitely won't pass the interview today. If he didn't stop me, I'd really like to show him the power of Wing Chun that I've just learned. Sorry, I'm late." As an apologetic voice came, Yuan and Lu Feng lifted their eyes to look behind them. An ordinary-looking young man in a suit walked over. Yuan was stunned at first, but her face subsequently turned pale. She realized that the suit Yi Chan was wearing was neither fish nor fowl. Not only did it look old, but it was also a small size. The sleeves were a few centimeters short. I don't know which trash can it came from. If the female colleagues in the company saw it, they would laugh at me to death. Yi Chan said to Yi-Wen with a smile after he walked closer, "Sorry to keep you guys waiting. Due to the fact that he had cultivated the body refining technique, his body had become a lot more muscular. Before he went out, he put on his suit from a few years ago only to find that it didn't fit. Things were urgent, so he didn't have time to change it." All right. Don't say any more. Get in the car." She then turned around and got into the passenger seat of the Camaro. She had no intention of introducing Lu Feng to Yi Chen at all. Disdain flashed through Lu Feng's eyes after taking a good look at Yi Chen. He said while chewing the betel nut, "You're Wenwen's cousin, right? Oh yeah, what's your name again?" Yi Chen frowned and said, "I don't like the taste of betel nut. Please chew the gum when you talk to me next time or stay away from me. Also, introducing yourself before asking for someone's name is the most basic thing to do." The smile on Lu Feng's face froze a little. Subsequently, he said while grinning, "You have character. I like it. I hope that we can be colleagues in the future." He emphasized on the word can. "Let's go, Lu Feng." Yi-Wen, who was in the car, could not help but urge. Lu Feng smiled and got into the driver's seat. Yi Chen opened the door and sat at the back. A strange smirk appeared at the corner of Lu Feng's lips after glancing at Yi Chen from the passenger seat. He stepped on the accelerator, and the car sped out in a whoosh. Yi-Wen, who was in the passenger seat, was shocked. Meanwhile, Yi Chen was as still as a mountain. Over 10 minutes later, the car successfully arrived at their destination, Yaffle Cosmetics Limited Company. Yi-Wen suddenly turned her head to look at Yi Chen when they were getting out of the car. She said, "No matter how the interview goes, I don't want anyone to know that we're relatives." "Sure," Yi Chen said, while smiling calmly. He had never thought about it that way. The reason why he came was merely to go through the motions and give his second uncle and father an explanation that they could accept. Yi-Wen nodded expressionlessly and walked into the company after pushing the car door open. Lu Feng walked over after parking the car. He said with a fake smile, "Brother Yi, I wish that you'll pass the interview. Thanks for your kind words, Yi Chun said, and walked into Yaffle Cosmetics Limited Company. He walked directly to the interview building. Lu Feng watched him leave quietly and scoffed. Go F***CK yourself. One idiot. The interviewer this time is my third uncle. If you pass, I'll change my surname to yours. As soon as Yi Chun arrived at the interview building, he saw many people standing at the entrance. All of them were dressed formally, but they looked nervous. A lady in formal attire walked over and said while smiling, Sir, please submit your resume. Yi Chun passed her the resume that he brought. The lady took it and registered it. She returned and said while smiling, Mr. Yi, please wait patiently for the interview. Your name will be called when it's your turn. Yi Chun nodded and sat directly on the long bench at the entrance. The people around looked at each other and smiled when they saw that the suit that he was wearing was out of place. If there were more idiots like him, they would not have any competitors. Over an hour later, an extremely soft voice came from the lobby. The next interviewee, Yi Chun, please get ready. Yi Chun got up and walked in immediately. He happened to pass by a fatty who looked bitter. Meanwhile, a bald man was sitting against the wall in the lobby. There was a slender lady who was dressed like an assistant standing next to him. The bald man lifted his head to look at Yi Chun after he sat down. A strange gleam flashed through his eyes, but he subsequently said expressionlessly, I'm your interviewer today. My name is Lu Kuan. The interview will begin now. Let's introduce ourselves. Yi Chun said coldly. Yi Chun. Lu Kuan nodded and gestured for him to continue. However, Yi Chun looked at him without saying a word. That's all? Lu Kuan was stunned. Yi Chun nodded. At that moment, Lu Kuan's expression turned grim. Are you sure you're here for an interview? Not only do I want to know who you are, but I also want to know about your work experience, education, and characteristics. The lady who was standing next to him could not help but look at Yi Chun again. She was shocked. This interviewee today is quite the show-off. Yi Chun smiled calmly. Everything that you want to know is written on my resume. Why do you still need me to introduce myself? The lady snickered. She was amused, and her breasts were heaving up and down. She stopped laughing immediately when she noticed Lu Kuan's cold stare. She looked like she wanted to laugh, but did not dare to. Why you? Lu Kuan was furious. He wanted to ask Yi Chun to scram by instinct, but he stopped when he was about to speak. He suddenly recalled that his nephew, Lu Feng, had specifically told him not to let this brat pass the interview. Instead, he had to humiliate him. Isn't it too easy for him to ask him to scram now? Lu Kuan took a deep breath as he thought to this point. He said while suppressing his rage, Sure, I won't ask about the information on your resume. I'll ask about something else. At the same time, footsteps came from the door. It seemed like someone was passing by. Lu Kuan's eyes lit up at the moment. He pointed at the door and asked, What was that person wearing earlier? If you can answer that, I'll pass you right away. The lady who was standing next to him looked at Yi Chun sympathetically when she heard that. It's hopeless. Even she, who was known to be good at reading people's expressions, could not answer such a tricky question. In such a formal interview, the interviewee's focus would be on communicating with the interviewer. How would he notice who was passing by the door, whether it was a man or a woman, or what they were wearing? Does this question have anything to do with my interview? Yi Chun asked expressionlessly. Lu Kuan said in all seriousness, Of course. The reason why I asked this question is to test your ability to withstand pressure and to read people's expressions. If you can't even answer that, what's the point of the company hiring you? He did not hide the smugness on his face at all. Let's see how arrogant you are now. In reality, even he could not answer the question himself. Yi Chun smiled and said nothing. Scram. Ask yourself what you're capable of during the next interview. A piece of trash like you isn't even qualified to guard our company's door. Lu Kuan smiled in disdain and lifted his eyes. Next, Chapter 15. Lu Kuan raised his brows and said in disdain, I'm sorry if you're begging me to give you another chance. I'm very busy. Did I say that I can't answer that? Mockery appeared at the corner of Yi Chun's lips. The person who walked by earlier was a lady. She's 168 centimeters tall and has long hair. She's wearing a light black professional suit with a pair of black leather straps and a pair of tassel heels. Oh yeah, her measurements are 89, 62, 2 and 90. 7. She's wearing a red lightning bra with padding on her chest, which is what you guys call silicone. The smile on Lu Kuan's face froze as soon as he was done speaking. The smile on Lu Kundang's face immediately froze. Beside him, the personnel girl subconsciously covered her mouth with her hands, her breasts heaving up and down. Did he really say that? Was he making it up? Yichen looked at Lu Kuan while smiling. Do you want me to continue? Xiaolin, get that person back. Hurry, Lu Kuan urged after snapping back to his senses. The assistant glanced at Yi Chun in an extremely strange manner. She then went out to look for the surveillance footage while twisting her tiny waist. After she left, Lu Kuan looked at Yi Chun and secretly scoffed. Not only do you know what she's wearing, but you even know her measurements and the color and style of her bra. Aren't you being too arrogant? Either you have X-ray vision or you slept with her last night. Let's see what else you have to say later. Yi Chun smiled without saying anything. His divine sense was enough to cover a radius of 10 meters. Under his divine sense, nothing could escape his line of sight. Moreover, he could multitask. Soon, Xiaolin returned with an unnatural expression. The people who were waiting for the interview outside were stunned. The person who came was the marketing director, Fangya. She was known as the eunuch maker. There was once a tall, rich, and handsome man who failed to pursue Fangya. He wanted to do whatever he wanted with her because he was rich. In the end, Fangya gave him a kick that ended his family line and sent him overseas for treatment. Lu Kuan's mind was buzzing and he was in disbelief. Fangya's appearance was exactly the same as what Yi Chun had described. How was that possible? Lu Kuan gulped as shock filled his face. Director Lu, what can I do for you? Fangya said impatiently. She had just broken up with her boyfriend and her period had come. She was in a bad mood. Lu Kuan nodded, then shook his head. Fangya snorted and said, If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. When she turned around, Lu Kuan blurted out subconsciously, Director Fang, what's your measurements? Have you had breast implants? As soon as he said this, he realized that everyone was looking at him as if he was an idiot. Shit! His heart thumped. Fangya turned around abruptly, raised her high-heeled shoes, and gave him a kick. Her pretty face was extremely cold. Despicable, shameless. Lu Kuan was caught off guard and was kicked to the ground, losing all his face. When the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but shrink their necks and swallow their saliva. They thought to themselves that with such a hot temper, he was indeed worthy of the title of eunuch maker. Yichen only said while smiling after Fangya left, May I know if I've passed the interview? You're ruthless. Lu Kuan glared at him while clenching his teeth. He was leaving with a grim expression. Yichen nodded. Thank you, interviewer. Oh yeah, I think I saw wrongly. Director Fang doesn't have breast implants. I'm so sorry that you got kicked. Lu Kuan stumbled. At the same time, Yuan and a few of her colleagues were discussing outside the interview building. Yuan, who was in the crowd, said nothing with a bitter expression. She would look into the interview hall every now and then, seeming to be troubled. Seemingly guessing her concern, Lu Feng, who was standing aside, said while smiling, Don't worry, Wen. I've talked to my uncle earlier. That guy definitely won't pass the interview. That's right. Master Lu's uncle is the director of the HR department. He has the power to decide the employee's life and death. As long as he doesn't agree, that cousin of yours won't stand a chance. Another lady named Zhao Qian nodded in agreement. She looked at Lu Feng with passion in her eyes. A bespectacled man hugged the lady next to him and said, Wen, it's not that I want to criticize your father, but since he is such a poor relative, it's better to cut off contact with him as soon as possible. Otherwise, he'll be begging you guys for help every other day. Zhou Kai is right. Wen, you have to be more open-minded. Although Yi is your cousin, the difference between the two families is too great. They're not in the same world at all. When you get together with Lu Feng in the future, the difference will be even greater, the lady in Zhou Kai's embrace advised. Yuan responded absent-mindedly. She was secretly regretting it. I shouldn't have agreed to let my dad come. Great, everyone is lecturing me now. Fortunately, Lu Feng had already talked to his second uncle. She felt much better now that she thought about it. Even if Lu Feng doesn't interfere, I suppose he won't pass the interview with his behavior, right? I'm doing this for your own good. I don't want your colleagues to dislike you when you enter the company. I'll be stuck in the middle by then. Meanwhile, Lu Feng had a smirk on his face. He secretly swore to himself that he would take a good look at Yi Chen's disappointed face when he came out. He would mock Yi Chen at the same time to teach him how to behave. As the few of them were chatting, they saw Lu Kuan walk out of the interview building. Lu Feng went to him immediately and said while smiling, "How was it, third uncle? That guy didn't pass, did he?" Slap. Lu Kuan slapped him without saying anything. His face was pale. "You idiot, you've screwed me over." The crowd fell into dead silence. Lu Feng was dumbstruck while covering his face. Yiwen and the rest were dumbstruck too. What exactly happened? That's not right. That's not how the script works. Third uncle, what exactly? Lu Feng could not wrap his head around it. Get lost. Lu Kuan scoffed and walked to the company's clinic angrily. He hated Yi Chun to the core because Feng Ye's kick earlier had caused him to suffer internal injuries. After he left, Zhou Kai gulped and said, "W, what exactly happened?" At that moment, Yi Chun walked out. Lu Feng went to him immediately and said with a fake smile, "Brother Yi, how's the interview?" At such a time, he still had a glimmer of hope in him. "Thanks to you, Brother Lu, I was lucky enough to catch Director Lu's attention. I passed the interview," Yi Chun said while looking at him playfully. The smile on Lu Feng's face finally froze. How was that possible? This guy really passed the interview. One must know that he had secretly threatened Yi Chun before the interview. He said that if Yi Chun passed the interview, he would change his surname to Yi Chun. Yiwen had an unnatural expression on her face. She opened her mouth and said calmly, "Congratulations then." She glared coldly at Lu Feng. What's wrong with Lu Feng? Didn't he say that there's no problem at all? Meanwhile, Zhao Qian, Zhou Kai, and the rest were observing Yi Chun. They then smiled. As expected, Lu Feng was right. Wenwen's cousin looked mediocre and was dressed like a country bumpkin. One could tell that he was a person who had not seen much of the world. However, such a person had passed the interview. A few seconds later, Lu Feng finally snapped back to his senses. He forced a stiff smile on his face. "Brother Yi, may I know which department you've chosen?" Yiwen could not help but prick up her ears. "The sales department," Yi Chun said calmly. Lu Feng was stunned at first. Then he revealed joy on his face. All of the gloominess that he had earlier was swept away. He almost could not help but laugh out loud. "The sales department. Great. I happen to be the manager of the sales department. Yi, we're going to have fun in the future." Lu Feng regained his calm expression from before. He smiled playfully. "Brother Yi, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the sales department." Yi Chun glanced at him in deep thought. Lu Feng is the manager of the sales department. Yiwen, who was standing aside, hugged Lu Feng's arm by instinct. There was a faint hint of pride on her face. Yaffle was a big company. The sales manager's annual salary was around 150,000 yuan. Including the team's performance and commission, the annual salary would usually be 300,000 to 400,000 yuan. That was what Yiwen was proud of. Her boyfriend had become a department manager in less than 2 years. It was possible for him to become a department director, regional director, or even a branch manager. Meanwhile, you're my cousin, Yi Chun. Putting aside the fact that you've wasted 5 years and accomplished nothing, you're even working for my boyfriend now. It's embarrassing. Zhou Kai pushed his glasses and said in a lecturing tone, "You're Yi Chun, right? Since you've joined our sales department, you must listen to all of Master Lu's instructions from now on. Don't drag our team down, and don't embarrass Master Lu." "That's right. Although you're Wenwen's cousin, there's no such thing as family in the company. If you really make a mistake, there's no room for negotiation." Zhao Qian pulled a long face as if she had transformed into the company's upper management. "Oh," Yi Chun responded calmly. "Don't you have anything to say to Master Lu?" Zhang Li, who was behind Zhou Kai, looked stunned. Yi Chun lifted his eyes to look at Lu Feng and asked, "Where's the office?" "It's over there." Yiwen pointed with a grim expression. Yi Chun nodded and walked to the office. After he left, Zhou Kai could not help but say, "Master Lu, this guy seems a little arrogant. We're reminding him out of kindness, but he's a little impatient. Not only that, but he doesn't respect you, his superior." "That's right. This guy doesn't even know the basic workplace rules." His EQ is too low, Zhao Qin agreed. Zhongli thought about it and said, could it be that he doesn't respect you because he's Wenwen's cousin? Lu Feng squinted as he watched Yichen leave. He scoffed. All right, stop talking. I've always been a person who separates work from public. Naturally, I'll reward him if he performs well, but I'll punish him if he doesn't. Yi, let's have fun in the future. Yuan bit her lip, feeling wronged. Chapter 16. The efficiency of a big company was indeed different. Yichen had completed all the procedures as soon as he joined the company, including his work pass, salary card, and so on. Meanwhile, there were more than 10 people in the sales department. Apart from Lu Feng and the rest had no idea about the relationship between Yichen and Yuan. Therefore, they were rather friendly to Yichen. Yichen spent the entire day familiarizing himself with the company's business information in the office. Seeing that it was almost time to get off work, Lu Feng suggested that they go to the internet cafe to play PUBG after lunch. Zhou Kai and the rest supported him. PUBG was popular as soon as it was released, especially for young people like Lu Feng. Although they could form a team with their teammates at home, it was nothing compared to playing together. Yuan could not dissuade them, so she called home to tell them that she would be home later. Yichen secretly shook his head. He received a call from his second uncle when he was going to pick Mingming up from school. He said that he was worried about Yuan, so he asked Yichen to take care of her. Since he could not refuse, Yichen eventually called his mother and got her to pick Mingming up from school. Yichen, we're going to the internet cafe. Are you coming? Lu Feng asked while looking at Yichen. Yichen glanced at Yuan and said calmly, yes. Yuan frowned. She thought that Yichen was really a follower who followed her wherever she went. Lu Feng was stunned too, but he subsequently smiled. To him, Yichen finally realized the gap between them after joining the company, so he wanted to ease their relationship. At night, at the Mandala Internet Cafe, a Camaro and a Honda CR-V stopped at the entrance. Lu Feng got out of the car first. He lifted his head to look at the internet cafe before him and said, this is the best internet cafe on E Street. Not only is the environment comfortable, but the computers and internet speed are great too. The internet fee alone is 12 yuan per hour. Lu Feng turned his head and glanced at Yichen mysteriously as he spoke to this point. Country bumpkin, I'm afraid you've never heard of an internet cafe that costs 12 yuan per hour, let alone spend money on one, right? However, Yichen looked calm. Lu Feng secretly scoffed and waved. Let's go in. I'll introduce someone to you guys. They walked in one after another. The internet cafe was huge, with more than 300 computers. Less than half of the seats were occupied, and there was an innocent female employee standing at the bar counter. Around them were beverage machines, leisure areas, fitness areas, and so on. Lu Feng did not ask the cafe manager to turn on the computer right away. Instead, he brought them to a less crowded corner of the internet cafe. A young man in a black singlet with a cigarette in his mouth was sitting there, cursing at the dark PUBG screen. Brother Wu. Lu Feng greeted him and gave him a soft chonghua. The young man turned around, revealing an extremely rough face and 2 muscular arms. He took the cigarette and said with a smile, Lin Feng, you're here. Yuan, Zhou Kai, and the rest looked at the young man timidly. They seemed to be afraid of his appearance. Lu Feng took out a lighter and lit it for him. He then turned around and said to the crowd, let me introduce you guys. This is Brother Wu. He's the boss of the entire E Street. Everyone instantly became solemn. To be able to survive until now, it was obvious that he was not ordinary. Zhou Kai, Yuan, Zhao Qian, and Zhongli went forward one by one to greet fifth brother. Yichen remained unmoved. He lost interest after glancing at the young man. The young man took a puff of a cigarette and said, while smiling in satisfaction, since you're Lin Feng's friends, you're my friends too. Don't worry and have fun. Call me anytime if there's any problem. He looked at Yichen next to him when he was done speaking. His smile was rather cold. Who's this? The reason being Yichen was the only one who did not greet him respectfully when everyone greeted him earlier. At that moment, Zhou Kai and Zhao Qian looked at Yichen in a gloating manner. They were eager for him to anger Brother Wu. Brother Wu, this is a newcomer to our company. He's a little immature. I'll definitely teach him a lesson when we get back. Lu Feng secretly scoffed, but he said insincerely. Chen Wu said in his deep voice, "You must teach him a lesson if he's immature. In today's society, immature people will suffer." Of course, of course. Lu Feng was secretly over the moon. Later on, Chen Wu played another game. Lu Feng brought everyone back to the counter to turn on the computers. When it was Yi Chen's turn, Zhou Kai asked, "Yi Chen, why aren't you playing? Don't tell me you don't have money. I can lend you some. You don't have to pay me back." Lu Feng pretended to be generous and was going to give him money. Yi Chen rejected coldly. "It's all right. I don't like to play games." He had disappeared for a few years. He knew nothing about PUBG and the League of Legends, nor was he interested in it. Yiwen clenched her fists tightly while her cheeks were flushing. "Isn't it just tens of yuan? You can't even bear to pay that? Since that's the case, why did you come? Are you trying to embarrass me in front of everyone?" "Forget it. He can play if he wants to," Zhao Qian said impatiently. She took the ID card that had been charged and walked to the boarding area. She specially chose a seat with a better location and sat down. Lu Feng held Yi Wen's hand and sat down too. Soon, the few of them logged into the game and began their journey of PUBG. Meanwhile, Yi Chen sat aside with his eyes closed. Nobody knew how long had passed when a few people walked into the internet cafe. The leader was a young man. He seemed to be drunk as he staggered and had to be supported by someone. The young man burped after he stood still. He said while looking at the entire internet cafe that reeked of alcohol, "All of you scram. I'm booking this internet cafe." The entire internet cafe fell into silence as soon as he was done speaking. The entire internet cafe fell silent in an instant. Everyone looked up at him. Some people with bad tempers instinctively opened their mouths and wanted to scold him, but when they saw the few burly men behind the young man, they shut their mouths. Those who were smart knew that these people were not simple. The female employee, who was startled, walked over and said in a trembling voice, "Sir, please don't pa." The young man slapped her and said in a muffled voice, "Scram. I'll count to 3. Gasp. The entire internet cafe was in chaos. The crowd rushed to the entrance like a swarm of bees. Most of them left within the blink of an eye. They did not even have the time to pay the bill and log off. Only Yi Chun, Lu Feng, and the rest were left. Yiwen's pretty face had a change of expression as she approached Lu Feng by instinct. Zhongli stammered, "Should we leave too?" "No need. This internet cafe is under Fifth Brother's protection." Lu Feng smiled calmly. He got up and walked to Chen Wu. He asked, "Fifth Brother, who are they? I'll go and ask them." Chen Wu walked to the bar counter, looking rather upset. This internet cafe was under his care, and the boss of the internet cafe also gave him a monthly allowance. After today's incident, how was Chen Wu going to survive in the future? Chen Wu looked at the drunk young man and said while smiling, "Brother, I'm Chen Wu. Those who respect me in the underworld call me Fifth Brother. You guys pa." He was slapped before he was done speaking. The young man had disdain written all over his face. "I don't care if you're Fifth Brother or Eighth Brother. You'll have to bear the consequences if you don't get out now." Chen Wu looked terrible as if he had eaten a fly. He kicked the young man first. "CKU. How dare you cause trouble in my territory?" The young man fell onto the ground instantly. The few people next to him had a change of expression as they charged at Chen Wu at the same time. "Fifth Brother is being beaten up. Go." Lu Feng, who was below the stage, was boiling with adrenaline. He screamed and charged forward too. He knew very well who was behind Fifth Brother. Naturally, he would reap many benefits later if he were to help at such a time. Zhou Kai hesitated for a moment as soon as he charged forward. He clenched his teeth and charged forward too. At that moment, the two groups of people fought. The female cafe manager squatted in the corner and dared not move at all. Yuan was stomping her feet in panic. "How did this happen? What do we do now?" Zhao Qian gulped and suddenly noticed Yi Chun, who was standing aside. She said coldly, "Why aren't you fighting, Yi Chun? Lu Feng and Zhou Kai are fighting. Are you still a man?" "That's right. We're on the same side. I can't believe you're watching them get beaten up." "You're useless," Zhongli agreed. Yuan bit her lip and disappointment filled her eyes when she looked at Yichun. I can't believe you're such a petty and selfish person. Subsequently, she was going to charge forward to help. However, Yichun held her back. He had his eyes on the purple wolf head pattern on the drunk young man's wrist and said in his deep voice, "Don't go. It's not that simple." Chapter 17. Let go of me. Yuan struggled with all her might. At that moment, the battle ended with Lu Feng, Chen Wu, and the rest winning. Lu Feng pinned the drunk young man and could not stop slapping him. That's what you get for being arrogant and acting cool. The young man's head was swollen from all the slaps. That's enough. Chen Wu stopped him. The drunk young man sobered up after someone helped him up. He said to Lu Feng and Chen Wu while covering his nose in resentment, "You guys are dead. How dare you hit me? You guys are dead." Lu Feng scoffed. "I'll wait for you. Remember, it's me, Lu Feng, who beat you up." "Scram!" Chen Wu shouted. The drunk young man jolted and left the internet cafe quickly while being helped. As soon as they left, Yuan shook Yi Chen's hand off and walked over. She took a good look at Lu Feng. "Are you all right, Lu Feng?" "I'm fine. What can happen to a few idiots?" Lu Feng waved, not caring at all. He looked cool and calm as he spoke, but Fifth Brother was really powerful earlier. He beat those bastards up with just a few punches and kicks. Chen Wu patted Lu Feng's shoulder. "Thanks for what you did earlier, Xiao Feng. You're my brother from now on." Lu Feng was over the moon. Although Chen Wu was alone, his power was not ordinary, especially the people behind him. Yuan was still in shock. She said hesitantly, "Fifth Brother, will anything happen to us?" "Don't worry. Go back and play your game. Nobody will dare to cause trouble with me here." Chen Wu lit a cigarette and smiled calmly. He walked over and began chatting with the female manager who was sitting on the ground. "That's right. Don't worry. This is Fifth Brother's territory." Lu Feng comforted in all sincerity. "Let's go. It won't be too late to go back after we have some chicken dinner." The rest were completely relieved after hearing what he said. They stopped thinking about anything else. They had no idea that they were in trouble. Yichen secretly shook his head. Zhao Qian happened to see him shaking his head. The smile on her face turned cold. "Yi, what do you mean by shaking your head?" "Nothing," Yichen said coldly. Zhao Qian glared at him fiercely and said to Lu Feng with a smirk, "Master Lu, there are only 3 men here. You and Zhou Kai charged at him just now, but someone was so cowardly that he did not even dare to breathe." Yes. I can testify that she's not even as good as a woman. "At least when one wanted to go over and help you just now," Zhongli said, as if she wanted to see the world in chaos. Lu Feng glanced at Yi Chen in disdain upon hearing that. He almost called Yi Chen a piece of trash. "Forget it. Let's continue the game," Yuan said coldly, secretly disappointed in Yi Chen. The group returned to the computer and restarted the game. Yi Chen walked behind Yuan and persuaded, "Wenwan's getting late. Why don't we go back? Otherwise, second uncle will be worried. Can't you see I'm busy? If you want to leave, leave first." Yuan replied impatiently. Zhongli chuckled and said, "You're just Wenwen's cousin. You're more bossy than her parents." "That's right. If anything happens, you'll still be the same as before. Only Master Lu and Zhou Kai can fight at the critical moment." Zhao Qian turned her head and mocked him. Yi Chen smiled and did not persuade her further. He turned around and walked to the entrance of the internet cafe. He had done enough benevolence and duty. Yi Chen looked out of the internet cafe by instinct after taking a few steps. He seemed to have sensed something, so he could not help but frown. As expected, what's coming has come. Let's see how you guys are going to handle this. A mocking smirk appeared at the corner of his lips. He walked straight back and found a random spot to sit down. He lit a cigarette quietly. Just when Chun was going to take out his phone to make a call after getting the female manager to clean up the mess, he heard a loud bang all of a sudden. He turned his head immediately. He saw the internet cafe's glass door shatter. 20 to 30 hunks in suits rushed in and blocked the entrance. Lu Feng and the rest who were playing games were shocked when they heard the noise. They stood up from their chairs by instinct. They were shocked when they saw the people at the entrance. Lu Feng secretly gulped. A terrifying thought popped into his head all of a sudden. Don't tell me the guy called these people here. Chen Wu's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have thought of something. So he took a few steps forward and said while smiling, "Where are you guys from?" "I'm Chenwu. I'm Brother Viper on East Street." To him, even if these people were the helpers the guy had called for earlier, they would definitely not dare to do anything to him as soon as he revealed his name as Brother Viper. "Chenwu, you sure are arrogant." Who knew a cold voice would come at that moment? As soon as the voice was done speaking, the 20 to 30 hunks guarding the entrance dispersed slowly. The 20 to 30 hunks who were guarding the entrance dispersed slowly. Subsequently, a young man with a malicious expression walked in. Meanwhile, a man with bandages all over his face followed behind the young man. He looked like a mummy. The man was glaring at Chenwu, Lu Feng, and the rest with a furious yet cold gaze. Chenwu's expression changed as soon as he saw the young man. Brother Viper. Brother Viper. Lu Feng's face turned pale right away. Brother Viper was one of the 4 warriors under Brother Leopard. He was famous for his ruthlessness on E Street. Even his uncle would have to call him Brother Viper politely, let alone Lu Feng. "Chenwu, you're really something. How dare you hit Brother Leopard's VIP?" Brother Viper stepped forward and kicked him. Chenwu knelt on the ground from the kick and dared not move at all. Chenwu felt dizzy when he heard the name Brother Leopard. He almost peed his pants. Brother Viper, this is a misunderstanding. Never had he thought that the guy earlier was Brother Leopard's guest. Misunderstanding. Brother Viper smirked and lifted his head to look at the mummy next to him. He said while smiling, "Master Du, how do you think we should settle this? Should we break his arm or kill him?" "Viper, I'll do it for you right away." "Get lost." Master Du pushed him away and kicked Chenwu's face. The kick made Chenwu fall to the ground directly. Chenwu dare not fight back at all. Instead, he knelt obediently again. Lu Feng and the rest were horrified to see that. Lu Feng, in particular, was shaking his legs as if he was going to kneel on the ground any time. No matter how dumb he was, he knew that he had made a huge mistake earlier. He had offended someone he could not afford to offend. Master Du slapped Chenwu a few more times before walking to Lu Feng and the rest slowly. He had his eyes on Lu Feng and Zhou Kai as he grinned. "I remember you, Lu Feng. You were the one who hit me earlier. I'm a man of honor. Apart from these 2 fellas, the rest of you scram." Zhao Qin pulled the corner of Yi Wen's shirt after hearing that. She stammered, "Wen, why don't we leave now?" Under such a situation, the loyalty and friendship that she used to talk about were a joke. She did not recall that she had Maki Chun as a piece of trash earlier. Yi Wen bit her lip hard and did not move at all. Determination filled her face. Zhongli hid behind Zhou Kai and trembled. Plop! Lu Feng could not help but kneel hard onto the ground. He lifted his hand and slapped himself. He said while crying, "And Master Du, I failed to recognize you. I hope that you'll forgive me." At that moment, he was no longer as calm and confident as before. He was like a dog that was wagging its tail and begging for mercy. "You failed to recognize me, didn't you?" Nobody knew where Master Du got a beer bottle from, and he smashed it on Lu Feng's head hard. The bottle broke as a result, while Lu Feng shrieked in devastation on the ground. Blood was dripping from his face. "You're forgiving me, aren't you?" Master Du spat. Just when he was going to hit him again, a furious voice was heard. "That's enough. I'll call the police if you hit him again." It was Yi Wen who spoke. She bit her lip and glared at him angrily in shock and anger. Lu Feng, who was on the ground, almost passed out upon hearing that. "Idiot, are you trying to get me killed? If calling the police worked, why would Brother Leopard be so powerful in Tianan? Call the police?" Master Du laughed out loud and turned his head to look at Brother Viper and the rest. Did she say that she's calling the police? Brother Viper and the rest laughed as well, as if they had heard something funny. Master Du turned his head and lifted his arm in an attempt to slap Yi Wen. His eyes lit up all of a sudden, and there was a perverted gleam in his eyes. "Oh, she's pretty. No wonder she's so fearless when she speaks. These 2 aren't bad either." Master Du then glanced at Zhao, Qian, and Zhongli. He licked his lips. "I've changed my mind. Strip these 3 B** cheese. I want to fly thrice in front of them." Whoosh! Yi Wen's face turned pale while Zhao Qian was shaking. "And no, Zhongli gripped Zhou Kai's hand tightly while her body could not stop shaking. Zhou Kai looked at Chun Wu, who was kneeling over there in despair. Fifth brother, I'm begging you. I'm begging you to beg Brother Viper. Ask them not to touch my girlfriend. Chun Wu remained still. Chun Wu, he can't even protect himself, and he's begging for you? Go follow Master Du's order. Strip these 3 cheese. Remember, don't even leave their safety pants. Then we'll open our eyes wide. Brother Viper sneered and waved his hand. 3 hunks in suits walked out from behind him and walked to Yi Wen and the rest. The leader extended his hand toward Yi Wen's boobs directly. Yi Wen's body shuddered as tears rolled down her face slowly. She closed her eyes in despair. At this moment, an emotionless voice resounded. Chapter 18. The voice that came out of nowhere was neither loud nor soft, but it was loud enough to be heard by everyone. The internet cafe fell into silence at that moment. Who was that? How could he be so arrogant? Everyone's expression froze as they looked toward the source of the voice. They saw a young man sitting on a chair in the 3rd row of computers. The young man looked mediocre. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and the ashes did not fall. He looked extremely calm and lazy. He sat there as if nothing had happened despite everyone's cold stare. Yi Wen's body jolted as she thought the voice was rather familiar. She turned her head to look by instinct and covered her mouth immediately. It's him. Zhao Qian's body that was initially shaking froze as disbelief filled her face. Yi Chun, Zhang Li, and Zhou Kai were so shocked that their mouths were wide open. Lu Feng, who was on the ground, looked like he had seen a ghost. Subsequently, he scoffed. Idiot! How dare he say something like that at a time like this? Can't he see Chun Wu kneeling on the ground like a coward? He must be asking for death. He could not wait for Yi Chun to continue looking for trouble. If that happened, he would attract hatred for himself. Perhaps Master Du and Brother Viper would be appeased after that. Yi Wen snapped back to her senses after being stunned for a moment. She scolded Yi Chun while looking at him. Are you out of your mind? This matter has nothing to do with you from beginning to end. Hurry up and leave. She would be lying if she said that she was not touched that Yi Chun stood up for her at such a time. However, she was more enraged and disappointed that he did not live up to her expectations. Nobody can touch you with me around. Yi Chun shook his head lightly with a smile at the corner of his lips, as if he was stating a fact. Holy sh*t, you idiot. Lu Feng almost cursed it out loud. He began to regret bringing this guy to the internet cafe. The incident was serious enough. Now that Yi Chun said that he did not respect anyone, it was equivalent to pushing the conflict to the climax. As expected, a peal of laughter came. Ha ha ha. Where the F***ck did this idiot come from? I'm dying of laughter. Master Du laughed out of rage. Nobody dares to touch her with you around, right? All right. Not only will I touch her today, but I'll also F***ck her up in front of you. He ran to Yi Wen directly as he spoke. Yi Wen closed her eyes by instinct, thinking that it was over. Bang! A loud thud was heard. Yi Wen opened her eyes immediately and saw Master Du, who was walking toward her, fly out like a rag bag. He landed hard on the bar counter. A silhouette appeared in front of her. Yi Chun. Yi Wen rubbed her eyes. She was so shocked that she could not speak at all. How is this possible? Lu Feng could not help but exclaim in shock because he saw Yi Chun send Master Du flying with a single slap. Zhao Qian and the rest were dumbfounded. Yi Chun flicked the ash off his cigarette and grinned while looking at young Master Du, who was being helped down. I told you that nobody can touch her as long as I'm here. Viper, what the F***ck are you waiting for? Kill them for me. Young Master Du roared with a ferocious expression. Because he used too much strength, he tore his wounds and coughed repeatedly. All of you attack, dead or alive. Viper waved his arm. Subsequently, he picked up a chair and charged at Yi Chun with killing intent on his face. Young Master Du was Brother Leopard's guest. Now that something had happened in his territory, Viper would be in trouble if he did not handle it well. Zhao Qian fell onto the ground when she saw the tens of people charging at them. She almost fainted from the shock. She pointed at Yi Chen's nose and cussed. It's all your fault. You be ***starred. Great. Now we're in trouble too. Yichen lifted his head slightly and looked at Brother Viper, who was charging at him with a mysterious smile. He could not believe that he was smiling when he was about to die. Brother Viper scoffed. Just when he was going to throw the chair in his hand at Yichen, his expression changed all of a sudden. He seemed to have recalled something and stopped moving immediately. He stared at Yichen in disbelief with his eyes wide open. Why you are? He recalled someone all of a sudden after seeing Yichen's face clearly. It was that person who had wreaked havoc in the club a few nights ago. First, he sent Wu Changchun flying like a god of war. Subsequently, he broke Brother Leopard's finger in an overbearing manner. After that, Brother Leopard ordered everyone not to offend that person. At that moment, a bone-piercing chill rushed into Brother Viper's heart. He was terrified. Just when he gulped and was going to say something, a shriek was heard. F***ck off. The word F***ck off almost scared Brother Viper out of his wits. He had fear on his face. It was him. It was him. The voice and the tone were exactly the same. It could not be wrong. Under everyone's dumbfounded expressions, Brother Viper swallowed his saliva, turned around, and ran madly toward the entrance of the internet cafe. He wished he had an extra pair of legs as he ran, while saying, "Go, go quickly." As soon as he ran, the 20 to 30 people behind him ran too. Master Du was dumbstruck at that moment. "Why, you guys," before he was done speaking, someone covered his mouth and carried him out. They were gone within the blink of an eye. Dead silence filled the place. Everyone watched everything blankly with their eyes wide open. Lu Feng's eyeballs were almost popping out, while Yi Wen's chest was heaving up and down. Meanwhile, Zhang Li, Zhao Qian, and the rest looked like they were petrified. Chen Wu knelt on the ground and looked around blankly. Who am I? Where am I? The people only snapped back to their senses a moment later. They heaved a sigh of relief, one after another. Everyone had a complicated expression when they looked at Yichen. Yi Wen clenched her teeth. She thought that they were dead for sure earlier. Never had she thought that Brother Viper would stop halfway with his men. Subsequently, Yichen made him run away after telling him to scram. She felt that she was starting to be unable to see through this cousin of hers. Zhao Qian opened her mouth and could not help but ask what was on everyone's mind. Yichen, do you know Brother Viper? At that moment, everyone had their eyes on Yichen, especially Lu Feng. If Yichen had an extraordinary background, would that not mean that what they had done earlier had unknowingly caused trouble? Yichen shrugged as everyone stared at him. I don't know him. Then, why did he run away as soon as he saw you? Zhou Kai had disbelief on his face. Yichen smiled calmly. I've no idea. Perhaps I scared him. The few of them looked at each other in confusion. They had no idea if he was telling the truth. Zhongli pretended to be funny and said, That's what I said. If you're really that powerful, why would you come to our company to work? After hearing what she said, everyone came to a realization. That was indeed the case. If Yichen could really scare Brother Viper, why would he come to their company to work? He was getting a base salary of 2,500 yuan a month and was dressed so shabbily. Lu Feng's heart that was sinking was cheered up again. He took the initiative to liven up the atmosphere and said, Then, Brother Viper must have mistaken him for someone else. It's getting late. Let's head back. He looked at Yichen and said with a straight face, Oh yeah, Yichen. The day after tomorrow is Saturday. You don't work on weekends. You must come earlier next Monday. You're not allowed to be late. Otherwise, your pay will be deducted. Yichen nodded and left subsequently. The group of people carried Lu Feng to the hospital nearby. Meanwhile, nobody cared about Chen Wu, who was kneeling on the ground. At the same time, at the Hongtai exclusive private club, Brother Viper knelt before Lin Tai respectfully and quickly recounted everything that had happened in detail. Lin Tai's expression could not stop changing. He eventually inhaled sharply. Are you sure you're not mistaken? Brother Leopard, I swear with my head that I'm absolutely right. He's that man. Brother Viper swore. That man. Fear appeared on Lin Tai's face. He said as he walked to the window and looked at the night sky, You did the right thing. I hope that man won't be mad at us because of this. Brother Leopard, what should we do about Master Du? Brother Viper asked hesitantly. Oomph. Lin Tai scoffed and looked ferocious. What else can we do? Send him back to Jiangbei. This piece of trash almost caused me great trouble. If it wasn't for his father, I would have cut him into pieces. Brother Viper was secretly shocked. He took the opportunity and retreated. After he left, Lin Tai took out his phone and dialed a number. As soon as the call was picked up, an extremely majestic, questioning voice came from the other side. Brother Lin, my bandit son was bullied in your territory. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Brother Du, I'd like to ask for an explanation from you. Lin Tai scoffed and told the man what happened immediately. A sharp inhale was heard after listening to him. Are you sure? Why would I lie about something like that? I sent people to ask around after this man caused a scene at my club. I found out that this man defeated the old master of the Wei family in Julong Antique City. He performed true energy release to hurt people through the air. He's someone you can't afford to offend. Lin Tai said in all seriousness. The person on the other side of the phone fell into silence for a few seconds before saying in an extremely hoarse voice, Brother Lin, thank you for that. I, the bandit, owe you a favor. Please send that little B asterisk star back tonight. I'm going to hang him on a tree and beat him up. You're welcome. Lin Tai hung up the phone while smiling. He stood before the window for a long time without saying a word. As the saying went, there were no two suns in the sky. Nobody knew how much trouble he would stir in the 3 Tianan provinces now that such a person had appeared. Chapter 19. It was past 9 p.m. when Yichen returned home. He saw his daughter doing her homework on the table as soon as he opened the door. Meanwhile, Yihai and Wu Lan were watching TV. Daddy, the little girl put down her homework immediately and pounced at Yichen while blushing. She opened her arms and said in her baby voice, Daddy, give me a hug. I want a hug. Sure. Yichen squatted down and caught the little girl. He then picked her up and rubbed her little face. His face was extremely gentle. My dear daughter, did you miss me? No, I didn't. The little girl stretched her arm out and giggled while touching his stubble. Wu Lan said while smiling. Usually, this little girl would be asleep at this time. However, she insisted on waiting for you today. She wouldn't go to sleep no matter how I coaxed her. Grandma, you're so naughty. I'm not talking to Grandma anymore. Meng Meng covered her eyes with her hands and peeked at Yi Chun through the gap. Daddy, where did you go? Why are you only back now? Daddy went to work and earned money to feed our Meng Meng. Yi Chun explained patiently while holding the little girl's chubby little hand. The little girl's eyes were filled with tears. Daddy, you've worked hard. Warmth flowed through Yi Chen's heart when he heard that. He said while smiling, Since you know that I've worked hard, why don't you kiss me? Daddy, you're so naughty. Grandpa and Grandma are watching. The little girl was shy, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Yihai coughed and turned around with Wu Lan at the same time. They stared at the TV in all seriousness. Yichen did not know whether to laugh or cry. Subsequently, he was going to put her down. Never had he thought that the little girl would move her little mouth to him all of a sudden and kiss his cheek. Subsequently, she covered her eyes with her hands like a quail. Now it's Daddy's turn to kiss you, right? Yichen touched the spot that the little girl had kissed, feeling relieved and happy. Now he finally understood why most families would rather have a daughter than a son. A daughter was really a father's sweet little jacket. She knew how to act coquettishly and comfort her father. If it were a son, he would be so mischievous that one would want to pin him to the ground, take off his pants, and beat him up. You wish. The little fellow rolled her eyes at him, then struggled out of his arms and threw herself heavily into Wu Lan's arms, acting very tsundere. Yichen smiled warmly and walked into the bathroom to wash up. When he came out, he realized that Meng Meng had fallen asleep in his mother's embrace. Yichen took a good look at her for a while and grew fonder of her. This girl was becoming more and more like her mother. He chatted with his parents for a while about the interview and then returned to his room. The next day was Saturday. Initially, Yichen wanted to bring the little girl out to play. However, he received a call from Gu Xiaoquan. Yichen glanced at the little girl who was watching television and walked out of the house quietly to pick up the call. What's up? Sir, we've almost gathered all the medicinal ingredients you've asked for. Gu Shaoquan respectfully went straight to the point and said, "But we're still missing one main ingredient." Yi Chun asked immediately, "What medicine?" "Heavenly spirit flower." On the list of medicinal ingredients that Yi Chun gave Gu Shaoquan back then, apart from medicine to treat his wife, there were also medicinal ingredients to refine the Qi blood pill, the blood marrow pill, and the rebirth pill for Meng Meng. The heavenly spirit flower was the key ingredient to refine the blood marrow pill, and there was no substitute. Yi Chun was rather disappointed. Just when he was going to tell him to forget about it, he suddenly heard Gu Shaoquan say carefully, "We've searched the entire Tianan province and finally found this in a Chinese medicine store. But they're not selling it." "Why not?" Yi Chun said with mixed feelings. "I heard that the daughter of the owner of this Chinese medicine store has a strange disease. They've looked for famous doctors everywhere, but it's useless. Therefore, he's offering the heavenly spirit flower as a reward for famous doctors to treat his daughter's illness. He even announced that he'll give the heavenly spirit flower to whoever treats his daughter's illness." Gu Shaoquan hesitated as he spoke to this point. "Sir, what do you think? I can't treat her." Yi Chun smiled calmly. He didn't know any medical skills, but he was a cultivator. For cultivators, mortal's birth, old age, sickness, and death could all be solved through spiritual energy or elixirs. "Sure, I'll get Brother Hu to pick you up right away." Gu Shaoquan was surprised and overjoyed. He then hung up the phone, not suspecting that Yi Chun was lying at all. Soon, Yi Chun received a call from Ahu. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Yi Chun got him to stop at the entrance of the district. He left after saying goodbye to his parents and Meng Meng. This time, Ahu did not drive the Bentley that he had last time. Instead, he drove a black BMW. Although that was the case, it still caused a commotion at the entrance of the district that was not rich. Especially the military license plate on the BMW, it shocked some of the people. There were even a few familiar faces among the crowd. They were Lu Feng, Yi Wen, Zhao Qian, Zhou Kai, Zhang Li. Ahu got out of the car as soon as he saw Yi Chun. He said respectfully, "Sir." He was filled with endless fear and respect for the young man before him. After all, Yi Chun had only used a surge of true energy to knock his gun off his hand the other day. "Let's go." Yi Chun nodded and got into his BMW directly. As the car drove away, Zhou Kai, who was in the crowd, rubbed his eyes and said, "Did you guys notice that the person who got into the car looked a little like Yi Chun? I wouldn't have noticed it if you didn't mention it. Now that you mention it, I think he looks a little like him," Zhang Li exclaimed. Shock and doubt filled her face. Lu Feng scoffed immediately. How could it be him? The military license plate aside, the BMW alone costs 700,000 to 800,000 yuan. Do you think that Yi is qualified to sit in it? That's right. It might just be his back. Zhao Qian had disdain written all over her face. She turned her head to look at Yi Wen next to her and said, "Wen, Yi Chun is your cousin. You're the most familiar with him. Tell me, is that him?" Yi Wen watched the BMW drive away quietly. She thought to herself for a few seconds while frowning. Subsequently, she shook her head and said, "I don't think so." Although she did not have much contact with Yi Chen's family, she learned a little about them from her mother. For example, one of Yi Chen's parents was a janitor while the other was a cleaner. There was also a child with leukemia in the family. With such a family background, it might be a problem for them to buy a tricycle, let alone a BMW. Lu Feng was secretly relieved to hear what she said. He pretended to be calm and said, "That's what I said. It's just a back view." Ahu drove very fast. With the license plate, he did not encounter any traffic police along the way. Over 2 hours later, he successfully arrived at his destination, the Medicine Anthology Pavilion. The 3 Tianan provinces included Qianan, Dianan, and Xiangnan. Qianan had dense forests and was close to the Miao tribe, so it was rich in medicinal herbs. Meanwhile, Xiangnan was rich in vegetables while Dianan was rich in fruits. Gu Shaoquan introduced the basic situation after he got into the car. The Medicine Anthology Pavilion was a century-old Chinese medicine store in Qianan. It was famous and had a powerful background there. Meanwhile, the owner of the Medicine Anthology Pavilion, Sun Jiaoyan, was known as the Qianan Medicine King. Ahu parked his car near the Medicine Anthology Pavilion directly. Before he got out of the car, he saw all sorts of people crowding outside. They were discussing the Medicine Anthology Pavilion. Yi-Chun walked straight to the middle of the crowd after getting out of the car. He noticed two hunks guarding the entrance of the Medicine Anthology Pavilion. They were scanning the crowd in an unfriendly manner. Meanwhile, there was a reward notice pasted on the brick wall. It was similar to what Gushaokuan said. The general idea was that the daughter of the Medicine Anthology Pavilion's owner was seriously ill, and they were looking for a famous doctor. The Heavenly Spirit Flower and 10 million yuan in cash would be given as a reward. The most interesting thing was that if the man was single, he could even marry the owner's daughter. A doctor wearing glasses next to Yi-Chun seemed to be tempted. A bespectacled doctor next to Yi-Chun seemed to be tempted. Just when he was about to step forward to take the results, he was stopped by a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man reminded him out of kindness. "Do you want to die? It's not that easy to take the reward notice." "What do you mean?" The man was confused. "Anyone who takes the reward notice will be killed if they can't treat Ms. Sun's illness." The man's face turned pale. He retreated a few steps back immediately and said while gulping, Is it that serious?" "It's not?" "Haha, you didn't see it. There were a few people who went in earlier. Some claimed to be medical saints, some claimed to be medical gods, and some were even medical experts from overseas. However, all of them were carried out with broken limbs." "Young man, I think you're young, so I'm advising you not to get involved in this. Although 10 million yuan is tempting, and although the Medicine King, Mr. Sun's daughter, is beautiful, you need to be alive to enjoy it. Let's just watch from here." The man looked around at the people. He got rid of the unrealistic thought in his head when he realized that everyone was watching a good show. He crossed his arms and grinned, anticipating the reckless guy who dared to take the reward notice. At this moment, an ordinary-looking young man took 2 steps forward and tore down the bounty notice that was pasted on the outside. The young man smiled calmly when he saw the 2 hunks guarding the entrance. Chapter 20. As soon as Yi-Chun was done speaking, the entire Medicine Anthology Pavilion fell into silence. The entire Medicine Anthology Pavilion fell silent in an instant. Everyone stared at him with widened eyes, their faces full of disbelief. There was really someone who was not afraid of death. The people gasped as soon as they snapped back to their senses. Yi-Chun was just too young. Not only did he look like he was less than 30 years old, but most importantly, he was dressed shabbily. He did not look like he had any medical skills at all. An old Chinese doctor at the scene began scolding him directly. "Young man, are you King kidding us?" Yi-Chun ignored them and looked at the 2 hunks guarding at the door calmly. One of them scoffed and subsequently entered the house. It seemed like he was going to inform someone that the reward had been posted. Meanwhile, the other hunk looked at Yi-Chun with a pitiful expression. To him, Yi-Chun was the same as the people who were beaten up earlier. He was not afraid of death because of the bounty. As footsteps came, a few people appeared at the door. The leader was an old man in a Chinese tunic suit. His face was rosy and he looked energetic. However, he did not smile, and there was a cold smirk at the corner of his lips. The people looked serious when they saw who it was. The Medicine King, Sun Jianyan. He was the boss of the entire Chinese medicine industry in Xianan. He could cause an earthquake in Xianan just by stomping his feet. Naturally, he was worth hundreds of millions. Most importantly, there was a rumor that the Medicine King had a herb-gathering gang under him. They were responsible for collecting medicinal herbs. Not only could they collect medicinal herbs, but they could also kill people. Sun Jianyan glanced through the crowd and subsequently looked at Yi-Chun expressionlessly. His gaze was intimidating. "Young man, you're the one who posted the bounty." "That's right." Yi-Chun smiled calmly. "Everyone here knows my rules. If you're not capable enough, the consequences will be severe." Sun Jianyan's eyes could not stop flickering. "So, I'm giving you a chance to back out now." Theoretically, he naturally hoped that all the experts in the world would come after hearing about the bounty. However, people were tempted by benefits. There would always be people who wanted to take advantage of the situation. If he did not scare them, the Medicine Anthology Pavilion's door would be flattened. To him, Yi-Chun was the latter. The people held their breaths as soon as they heard that. They could sense the solemnity and determination in Sun Jianyan's words. The doctor's face turned pale. He looked at the uncle next to him gratefully. That was close. Subsequently, he looked at Yi-Chun while gloating. Yichen replied to Sun Jianyan's question. I just want to know if I treat your daughter, will you give me the heavenly spirit flower? Yichen laughed and said while squinting, if you treat my daughter, not only will you have the flower, but I'll also marry Rong Rong to you. I'll give you. Yi yi yi. A series of gulps and gasps could be heard from the crowd. Their eyes were burning with passion. Chen Yi. She was known as one of the top 10 beauties in Qianan. King. The Yi would be, as with Yi King, if he was, he with Yi Chun Yi. As he said, he of ye old. Was. As soon as he became the Medicine King's son-in-law, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the entire Qianan. Even Gu Shaoquan, the young master of the Gu family, was tempted. As the people exclaimed, Yichen shook his head and smiled. Forget it. I can tell that your daughter isn't any better looking at you. Moreover, I have a family. He was not acting cool. He was afraid that Meng Meng would cling to him if he treated her. By then, Meng Meng would have a mother for no reason. It would be strange if she did not hate him. The people staggered when they heard that. Shock filled their faces as they thought they had heard it wrong. Was he disgusted or disgusted? The smile on Sun Jianyan's face froze. He said after a scoff, since that's the case, please come in. I hope that your ability is greater than your arrogance. Otherwise, Yichen turned his head and nodded lightly at Gu Shaoquan and Ahu were in the crowd. Subsequently, he followed Sun Jinyan into the Medicine Anthology Pavilion and went straight to a lounge on the second floor. At the moment, there were many people gathered there. However, most of them were doctors in uniforms. They were staring at the medical equipment before them without blinking. Meanwhile, there was a bed in the middle of the equipment. There was a pale lady lying on the bed. Her eyes were closed and her exquisite features were pale. There were 2 thick blankets on her. There was a chill lingering in the room. Sun Jianyan looked at the lady on the bed with pity on his face. He lifted his eyes and asked an old Chinese doctor next to him, how's the young mistress? He had a daughter when he was old. One could say that he had placed all of his hopes on his daughter. M-sister's vital signs are dropping. IV tried our best. The old Chinese doctor stammered while wiping his sweat. Sun Jianyan's expression turned slightly grim. He glanced at Yichen. Please. Yichen nodded and took 2 steps forward to the bed. He stretched his arm out and held the lady's wrist. He secretly channeled spiritual energy into her body. She felt a chill coming at her. Sun Jianyan had been glaring at him. He could not help but ask, how is it? Just when Yichen was going to speak, he saw a man in a suit walk in quickly from outside. He walked to Sun Jianyan and whispered something to him. Sun Jianyan had joy on his face. He was so excited that he could not control himself. Quick, invite him. No, I'll invite him myself. He did not look at Yichen anymore as he spoke. He turned around and walked out of the house with his people. He seemed to be welcoming someone important. His attitude was completely different from how he treated Yichen. Yichen looked stunned. Soon, Sun Jianyan returned. However, he was surrounded by a young man. The young man was approximately 20 years old. He wore a suit and had an extraordinary aura. Sun Jianyan's cheeks were flushing as if he had seen his savior. Mr. Lin, I can't thank you enough for coming down the mountain to treat my daughter. The young man looked calm as he glanced at the lady on the bed. There was a burning desire in his eyes. Subsequently, he looked at Yichen and said while frowning, who is this? He's here to treat Rong Rong, Sun Jianyan explained. The young man scoffed upon hearing that. Treat? I don't think he's a scammer. Old Sun, you've lived for so long, but you can't even tell this apart. Sun Jianyan looked awkward. The reason why he let Yichen in was that the young man before him had yet to come down the mountain. Left with no choice, he could only try his best. The young man looked at Yichen in utter disdain before he could speak. He waved and said, get him out. With me, Lin Fan here, there's no need for such a piece of trash. Yes, Sun Jianyan responded and turned around to look at Yichen with a cold expression. You must be thankful that Mr. Lin came in time. Otherwise, you'd end up like the rest. Get lost now. Yichen sat on a chair and lit a cigarette. He crossed his legs and looked at Sun Jianyan. Chapter 21. Would I beg you on my knees? Sun Jianyan was stunned at first, but he could not help but scoff. He pointed at Yichen and waved. Get him out of here. He was the Medicine King. Why would he kneel to a brat? What a joke. He would be a laughingstock if word got out. Wait. Lin Fan, who was standing aside, stopped the people who were rushing over all of a sudden. He looked at Yi Chan in mockery and said, I grew up on the mountain. I learned medicine when I was 6, read all the medical books when I was 8, started practicing medicine when I was 9, and mastered up to 1,000 rare diseases when I was 15. Sun Jianyan had admiration written all over his face. The few old Chinese doctors present were shocked. If what Lin Fan said was true, he was undoubtedly a medical genius. Yichen looked calm. Oh, so you're an expert who left the mountain? Lin Fan, believe that nobody dares to say that they're the best in the world. You're just a piece of trash. What makes you think you can compete with me? Lin Fan was domineering, as if he was going to crush everything. Yichen grinned and waved. No. You've misunderstood. In reality, I've never wanted to compete with you because I don't care about you at all. His voice fell. The smile on Lin Fan's face froze, and his face turned pale. He had never thought that his attempt to show off would be met with such a devastating remark. Sun Jianyan's heart sank when he noticed Lin Fan's expression. He said with killing intent on his face, break this brat's limbs and toss him out. It took him a lot of effort to get Lin Fan here. If Yichun made him leave, his daughter would be hopeless. Ha! Lin Fan smirked all of a sudden and challenged. Brat, do you dare make a bet with me? What's the bet? Yichun looked at him with interest. If I treat Ms. Sun's illness, you'll kneel and kowtow 3 times. Then, you'll leave after breaking one of your arms. What if you can't treat her? Yichun raised his brows and said wryly, I'll never lose. If you can't treat her, this belongs to me. Yichun interrupted him and could not help but look at the jade pendant on his waist. Lin Fan's expression changed a few times. Sure, Mr. Lin, this. Sun Jianyan glared fiercely at Yichun, hesitating to speak. Lin Fan waved his hand and said, Old son, you don't have to say any more. What you need to do is help me keep an eye on this kid and don't let him escape. Don't worry, Mr. Lin. Sun Jianyan nodded and subsequently ordered his men to guard the entrance. He was afraid that Yichun would run away. Next, please open your dog eyes and take a good look. Lin Fan scoffed at Yichun and walked to the bed. He got his men to remove all the medical equipment and place Sun Sairong's wrist over to check her pulse. He turned around and confidently said to Sun Jianyan, Miss Sun is suffering from a cold-ean illness. It's curable. Sun Jianyan was overjoyed. Immediately after, Lin Fan took out a cloth bag from his body, revealing rows of silver needles of various sizes that gleamed with a cold light. That alone made the rest of the people in the room think otherwise. An old Chinese doctor said in a trembling voice, is he going to use silver needles to pierce her acupuncture points? Lin Fan pierced Sun Sairong's Tiantu, Guan Yuan, vulture tail, and Tanzhong acupuncture points with the silver needles in his hand. Sometimes it was deep, and sometimes it was shallow. Sometimes it was poking, and sometimes it was lifting. The series of movements made the people's jaws drop. That's the burning volcano. The old Chinese doctor from before had his eyes glued to Lin Fan's movements. Shock filled his face. That young man is using the burning volcano technique. Oh my God. Old Wang, what's the burning volcano? Sun Jianyan asked with mixed feelings. Everyone could not help but look at Old Wang. Old Wang gulped and said rather excitedly, the burning volcano is one of the 2 ultimate skills of the immortal tying needle. It's also the treasure that every Chinese doctor in China pursues. It's said that it can restore the patient's vitality and make them immune to all diseases. It can even bring the dead back to life. The immortal tying needle? Isn't it lost? How did you recognize it? Another doctor exclaimed in disbelief. Elder Wang shook his head and said with certainty, I can't be wrong. I've seen records about it in the inner canon of the Yellow Emperor. The Tai immortal needle is divided into burning volcano and penetrating heavenly chill. It can be shallow and deep at first, or deep and shallow at first. It can be light or heavy stimulation, or it can be the 9-6 supplement and discharge, or it can be lifting or pressing. In short, it's a test of one's ability. The room fell into silence as soon as he was done speaking. Everyone stared at Lin Fan in disbelief with their eyes wide open. Never had they thought that this young man would know the immortal tying needle that had been lost for a long time. Sun Jianyan could not hide his excitement. Since Mr. Lin knew the immortal tying needle, did that not mean that his daughter could be saved? At his age, he could not help but look at Yi Chun, who was next to him, and secretly scoffed. Let's see what you're going to say later. Yi Chun sat on the chair calmly as he watched that. He had a playful expression on his face. Soon, Old Wong's choking voice came. The penetrating heavenly chill. It's the penetrating heavenly chill. I can't believe that I'll be able to see the two ultimate skills of the immortal tying needle at the same time in my lifetime. Someone asked, "How did you tell, Old Wong?" Look closely. Old Wong took a deep breath in and said, "The silver needles are approximately an inch long when they pierce the skin. The inch is divided into 3 parts: heaven, earth, and human. The young man has to lift the needles 9 times when they pierce the heaven part. It's called nourishment in the book. He has to lift the needles 9 times when they pierce the earth and human parts respectively. It's called discharge. In other words, he has to lift the needles 27 times consecutively within an inch." The people could not help but inhale sharply. Was that something that a human could do? As they spoke, Lin Fan, who was on the other side, was sweating. Clearly, the series of actions had taken a toll on him. The younger generation will surpass the older generation. Old Wong was crying and laughing as he exclaimed. He turned his head and said to Sun Jianyan, "Director Sun, with this man here, Miss Sun will be fine." Sun Jianyan looked at Sun Serong by instinct. Although his daughter had not woken up, she looked much better. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. At the same time, Lin Fan removed the needles immediately. After covering Sun Serong with a blanket, he got up and wiped his sweat. He said while looking exhausted, "Old Sun, fortunately, I didn't let you down. Ms. Sun's illness has been cured." "Thank you, Mr. Lin." Sun Jianyan bowed. Old Wong went up to him immediately. His lips were trembling. "Little brother." "Oh no, Master Lin, may I ask if what you performed earlier was the immortal tying needle?" "That's right. It was the immortal tying needle." Although he was exhausted, Lin Fan was proud. Subsequently, he looked at Yi Chun coldly and said, "I've cured your illness. Now, kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Then break one of your arms." Yi Chun remained seated without moving. "Someone get this brat to kneel." Sun Jianyan's expression turned grim as he waved his hand. A few hunks rushed into the house from outside and walked toward Yi Chun. Yi Chun did not move. He looked at Lin Fan with a wry expression. "Have you really cured her?" Of course, Lin Fan scoffed. Just when he was going to say something, a scream came from behind all of a sudden. "Guys, look! Ms. Sun, she..." Everyone hurriedly turned around and saw that Sun Serong was twitching on the hospital bed, and a cold aura was constantly emerging from her body. The cold aura solidified into ice when it came into contact with the air. In the blink of an eye, Sun Serong's eyebrows and even her hair were all frozen. Looking from afar, she looked like a frozen person. Someone looked at the device next to her and said weakly, "Ms. Sun is dead." The drastic change that came out of nowhere shocked everyone. Bang! Sun Jianyan walked over immediately and stretched his arm out to check Sun Serong's breathing. Subsequently, his body shook. He felt a humming in his head as if he had been struck by lightning. Lin Fan went over to check too and shouted in disbelief. "How did this happen? It's impossible. It's impossible. I performed the immortal tying needle." Immortal tying needle? What a joke. The people heard a disdainful voice coming from behind. When they turned their heads, they saw Yi Chun sitting on the chair looking at Lin Fan while enunciating word for word. "You're drenched in sweat and panting while treating a small illness. I have to say that you're really talented." "You." Lin Fan was enraged. Yi Chun interrupted with a smirk. "The key is that you're as ferocious as a tiger. Look at the results. You're just a piece of trash. How dare a piece of trash like you boast that you're the number 2 medical expert in the world? Learning medicine at the age of 6? An expert coming down the mountain? Go back and learn for a few more years. Don't embarrass yourself here. Trash." Lin Fan was so mad that he pointed at Yi Chun and screamed. He spat a mouthful of blood out of anger and could not stop shouting, "I can't treat her. Why you can't treat her too? Huh? Do you think I'm you? Trash." Yi Chun lifted his head to look at Sun Jiaoyan and smiled lightly. "Sun Jiaoyan, do you remember what I said earlier?" Sun Jiaoyan jolted and walked to Yi Chun immediately. He bowed and begged, "Mr. Yi, please forgive me and save my daughter. I'll definitely reward you handsomely." Yi Chun lit a cigarette and held his head down to dust his pants. He blew his smoke ring out softly.